Kelsey said this once, like, you see the red flags, but it's like you still want to try, and you think to yourself, where am I going to go? What other church is keeping the feast of Christ, of Jesus Christ? Jesus Christ kept all these feasts. He kept the Passover. He kept the Sabbath. Where am I going to find that?
Well, Odalys, thank you so much for being willing to come on and share your story with us this morning.
Of course. I feel like it has to be done.
Yeah. So that's something that I'm always interested in hearing from members who do come on and share, is just what their motivation is for doing that. Why do you feel that this is something that you want to do?
Because I want to make people aware, especially people with mental health issues, because that's something I want to put out there first before I start telling my story, because I don't want people, like, I don't know, current members of the church that I was attending might see it, or members who are thinking about it and ask. I was diagnosed bipolar 2 back in 2015. In the beginning, of course, it was a struggle, but I was stable. I mean, talking stable, like I didn't have to see my doctor for every 6 months is when I was seeing her, because I was so good. Everything was good with my medications. I was doing great. So I don't want people to misconstrue, well, she already went in there with issues, so that's why she left. And it's not like that, because what happened to me was a direct, how do I say that? I guess like reason, because of them. Basically what happened to me, it was because of that, because of the pressure they put on you, the guilt they put on you. So I started to, break down slowly.
Mm-hmm.
So
mm-hmm.
But I wanted to put that out there, because when I get into my story, they might say, well, she's bipolar. So she was already sick. Satan was already getting to her. And no, it's not like that, because I was good. I was very good. I was doing great. So it's just when I started to feel this way, of course, I thought it was Satan, because at that time I was still, there believing. So, but it wasn't. It was them. It's the pressure. It's the guilt they make you feel. It's everything. It's everything.
So talking a little bit with you a couple of days ago on the phone about your story, it sounds like you had the diagnosis previously, but then you went a long period of time, like you said, doing very well. And then when you ultimately ended up in the church, it seemed like possibly a lot of your experiences in the church sort of inflamed the struggle and kind of instigated some issues with that. And so, I think that's helpful to clarify, kind of getting ahead of the false narrative that obviously they're going to, want to spin this with. So,
because if anyone who is a current member sees this, they will, oh, well, she was already sick in the head or whatever. And no, I was good. I was doing everything right. I had a good job. I was starting a business, and, so things went sideways once they start to build the pressure more and more, and adding more and more things to what you have to do to be saved or to go to heaven, or, so.
Yeah, I'll say that a lot of times members who go in, when you leave, you end up feeling like you're walking out with some sort of like mental something, that's caused you, if you came in there in a certain situation. So if you're going in already like having struggles that you're overcoming, it's just going to magnify it for sure. Just a quick question, since we're on the topic, before we get into the full story.
Yes.
I know a lot of times the doctrine, their teachings about mental health is very regressive and very, I'm sure it's hurtful, the way that they teach, because putting on the member hat, they would say things like, if you have this, it's because you were so awful in heaven, such a big sinner, and this is something God gave to you in order to keep you away from salvation, because you just don't deserve it, because you were so bad in heaven. Hearing their teachings like that. How did you react at the time, knowing that you've already been diagnosed? Did the church know about this, or did you how did they tiptoe around it, or like kind of like cover their doctrine a little bit for you, or were they just?
So in the beginning, they didn't really talk much about mental health and all that. And in the beginning, I didn't tell anyone because I felt, it's my personal issue and it's not something that I need to share. And on top of that, in the beginning, I was still very, very defensive. Like my guard was up. And so I didn't. The only person who knew was my longtime friend, who was the one who invited me, who became my branch. She knew what was going on. But ultimately, when I couldn't take it anymore because of the way the pastor was speaking, like he was, he would say, if you're not preaching, you're not doing the work of the gospel, if you're not coming here every day. And I went to him and I said, listen, I feel like this is towards me. I'm going through a lot and I haven't been doing what I used to be doing. And I told him, I sat down with him and a deaconess in his office. And I said, I was diagnosed bipolar and now I'm going through some changes with that. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, sister. I didn't know, but no, my sermons are a message in general for everyone. And he's like, of course, you want to follow up with your doctor. Mother put doctors on this earth to help us. Always remember that mother is, she's God and everything that's happening will get better. And that was it. So, but after I told him, the deaconess that was with me knew, my group leader, right? Group leader? Yeah, because you have a group leader and a team leader. My group leader, who is also deaconess, Korean deaconess, knew. Ahnsahnghong knew because I was in kitchen committee. I'm trying to think who else knew. A few sisters knew. I wouldn't say everybody.
Yeah. Was it something you said, or because I know that, from someone who was a leader, after you say things like that, if you gave that kind of confession to the church leader, all the group leaders and deacons and all that stuff, we had like late night meetings and all that stuff is just told to the whole group.
Well, then I guess everyone knew.
No, I mean, like that's what I've seen in the past. Like everyone who's said, like, even something small like, hey, I have anxiety, please don't call on me to read. Even things like that, even members who say things like that, like all their mental health issues, everything like that is just told to everybody. And then it's disseminated down from there. So there's really no privacy or secrets there. But
no.
Did you tell all
the
people that you mentioned, that list of people? Did you tell them, or was it just something that they found? Okay.
No. So the ones that I mentioned are the ones that I told. Like I told my group leader, who was the deaconess. I told my team leader. And I told the other deaconess, my branch, and the pastor. I think those are the only people that I told. But I'm sure that they all spoke. Oh, and Ahnsahnghong. I'm sure they all spoke about it. I'm sure they did.
Yeah,
because I learned
news once you.
I learned very quickly that whatever happens there, everyone finds out in a matter of seconds. But that's a story that's part of one of the incidents that I had.
So, Anthony, can you, I guess, explain that a bit more about the way they deal with mental health? And I'm curious, Odalys, if you are you saying that you feel like you experienced some of that? I don't know what you would call it, but just it almost sounds similar to how you might think of how they treat like the homeless and handicapped. They just kind of create these stories around certain groups of people that it's like they don't really know how to fit these type of people into their box. And so they have to kind of put some, again, they have to put some kind of spin on it. So yeah, I don't know that that's something we've talked a whole lot about in previous shows. So I'm just wondering if there's anything more there that might be helpful too. let people in on in terms of how they deal with this issue?
Well, they don't deal with mental health issues. They feel that it's something that's wrong with you that you need to fix with God. An example, again, I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit. When I was going through really bad anxiety, like it got really bad, my husband suggested, he was like, please watch this video. It deals specifically with anxiety and how it's related to God and, everything that's going on. And because it was from a pastor from another church, I couldn't watch it because you're not allowed to watch anything from any other churches, any other pastors. So, and then it got me thinking, okay, so if I can't watch this YouTube video, maybe the Church of God has something specific to anxiety out there. So I go on their channel, I put how to deal with anxiety. Nothing came up. A bunch of videos of Kim Ju-ho, absolutely nothing came up. So I'm like, man, this is crazy. And then I'm thinking to myself, Satan is getting to my husband to get to me because he wants me to watch this. He knows I can't watch it. So it just kept building up. It did. But no, they do not deal with mental health issues. They don't deal with any anxiety. They want you to pray. They want you to preach because that revives your soul. And I did all of that. Like I said, when we really delve into it, I was doing all of it. And I felt no relief, no peace, nothing. So they don't deal with that. Just like they scratch off homeless people and, people that, they feel aren't good, I guess, good enough. It's the same.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you just said. They did put out this one video about how stress is a good thing to have. Like, you should have stress, which I thought was really crazy because they're a little heavy-handed with that. So, but Jordan, just going back, I can't point to any specific recorded teaching because there's a lot of things that they'll say in conversation. There's a lot of things that after service, like, the leader will get onto the microphone, the members will, talk, things like that. The way that mental health was shown or explained to me is kind of like the same way that homelessness, like, you could categorize it in the very similar way that people who are given this situation in life are given it because they don't deserve salvation because of what they did in heaven. And, there was this one movie we had watched about a lioness and her 3 cubs, and one wandered off too far away from the mother and was eaten by an alligator, and another one got trampled, and even though it was with the mother, it had like its legs broken and it was alive, but the mother just left it. The mother left that one to die because it was handicapped. And that was sort of like, sometimes it's related to things like mental health, like sometimes, like, even in the nature, what's on earth, is what's in heaven. We can learn about God through like looking at what's created on the earth. And if a mother lioness will leave her cub because it's injured, Heavenly Mother will leave you, her child, if you're injured, if you're not able to follow correctly. And if the mental health thing needs special accommodations and you can't keep up with the rest, then you're going to be left behind. That's what
Wait a minute.
I would have said if, I were a member. That's how I would have believed. Of course, if I was explaining it to a non-member, I wouldn't have explained it at all. I would have, that's more of like, if you're talking with like another higher faith member, that's how you really believe. Although you'd never say those things out loud to a non-member because it just sounds too cruel. So that, and you monitor what you say and how you explain it. But that was the inner workings and the, a deeper explanation of how they believe mental health exists.
Yeah.
And did you say they showed that video at one point?
Yeah, different churches will show different movies. This was a very popular one that a lot of the churches watched. Like, Sunday nights, after all day preaching and like things close around like 6, 7, 8 o'clock, you come back, you eat together, and then sometimes you watch a movie. And then afterwards you do what's known as fragrance, which is you just stand up like one by one and you explain how you saw something that related to the church's teachings inside of the movie. And one of them was about a lioness who had 3 cubs and they had to survive. And 2 out of the 3 died. And it's kind of, that whole process where you figure out what's spiritual. And there was one little cub that survived that was like the prodigal son and da-da-da-da. So I'm not sure if anyone else watched that movie too, but anyway, but they would try to teach you things through the movies.
Yeah, including that if you're a crippled cub, your mother will leave you behind. That's delightful. Yeah. Okay, just the fear mongering to keep you under their thumb. Well, could you take us back before you joined, and kind of what was the circumstances in which you joined the church in the first place?
Okay, sure. So, again, my branch is a longtime friend. We worked at a pain management facility years ago. To be exact, almost 15 years ago, because my youngest son is 15. But we had lost touch for a while. But, one day she invited me to the church. This was back in 2017. She invited me. I went with the kids. They took the kids to the kids' room and they sat me down to watch a video. Honestly, I can't remember what the video was because it was 2017. But they were, nice, but it was like very, already starting the love bombing. That's what we call it. But I didn't see it that way. I was just like, oh, these people are too nice. They're very smiley. It's a little weird. So I thanked them. I left. Flash forward 4 years later, we're in the middle of the pandemic. My son, my youngest, is suffering from some mental issues. He was a little socially awkward, and he was seeing a therapist and everything, but it just got worse because lockdown happened and they were in school at home on a computer. He was diagnosed with ADHD when he was younger. So, he has a hard time staying still and focusing. So it was a lot for him. I was working overnights at a Memorial Sloan Kettering in down South Jersey. So, when the lockdown happened, I would come home. Instead of sleeping, I would have to play teacher. But he started to get worse. He said he was starting to feel certain things. I don't really want to get into it because, it's my son. So I was seeking advice from friends, family, and everyone's like, oh, he needs God. You guys need God in your life. You don't go to church, and I was like, okay, maybe let me think about it. I started doing some research for some churches around here. And then it so happened that my branch reached out because the doctor that we both worked for at the pain management facility passed away from COVID. So everyone who still knew each other from that job, everybody started texting each other. Oh, the doctor passed away. Can you believe it was COVID? So she calls and she asked me how I'm doing. And, me with having the friend mentality, like, oh, this is a friend of mine. I confided in her and I told her what was going on with my son. And she's like, oh, maybe you should come to my church. So I took it as a sign. I said, okay, let me try it this time. Let me go a second time. So we go, and this is January of 2021. Yeah, I think. And we start studying, we got sat down with a very nice sister, and she, I forget the study. I think it was forgiveness of sins. That's usually one of the first ones they start with, like forgiveness of sins, Sabbath.
Yeah.
So yeah, they tell you, you know, that you were an angel in heaven. We sinned, and this is why we're here. And I'm like, oh wow, that could be true. You know, I can see that. So we keep studying. Immediately, she's like, oh, so you want to get baptized? I said, no, I want to keep learning before I get baptized. So we kept studying a little bit, but my son kept pushing, Mom, when are we going to get baptized? Mom, I really want to get baptized. So even though I was hesitant,
How old was your son at this time?
so 12, 13, 14, 15, no, so, oh my God, 13, 14, he was about 11, 12, I think.
And was he in the
Right?
study
4
room
years
with
ago, he's
you?
15. Yes. So in the beginning, it was me and him, and we did, you know, we did the first few studies together. We get baptized. Me and my youngest get baptized in March. And then we start studying more. Like I think I had like certain days where I was going. I think I was going like every Monday or every Thursday, at least twice a week. And then by I think by April, you know, I was starting to really like the doctrine, and wow, I've never seen this, and I've never seen Galatians 4:26, and you know, it's like it sounds so like wow, it's different. It seems good. So I get my older son. Go ahead.
Just to circle back though, because I just found it very strange that you have because usually when somebody wants to get baptized, you know, a lot of it has to do with, oh, this is a way of like salvation, but it's also, you think of it as, I'm scared about death, I'm scared about all this stuff, and I want to get baptized for safety. Like sometimes it's the seal of God study, sometimes it's different things that will, you know, oh, you're going to die unless you get this. That's the way that they teach most people. It's not really so much a don't you want to receive this beautiful bond and connection with God and this, you know, but instead it's more like God will destroy you unless you get this. A lot of the times that's the way they teach. And I'm just, you know, curious what your son was exposed to that made him so anxious that he wanted to get baptized before you found it important. Like, what is this child hearing that is,
I think it was
I
the
don't know what it
forgiveness
was.
of sins.
It was
Yeah, I think it
forgiveness
was
of
the
sins.
forgiveness of sins because, you know, on top of the stuff he was going through, now he's thinking I'm a sinner. You know, oh my gosh, I'm a sinner. So I need to find a way to be saved. So he kept pushing it. And, you know, I was like, can he get baptized? He wants to get, no, he can't get baptized unless you get baptized. So I still held on a little bit. I was like, let me study a little bit more. But he finally said, Mom, I really want to get baptized. I really want this. I want to get closer to God. I said, okay. So we got baptized. So yeah, so it's, I think, okay, so we keep our first Passover. Now we still have the COVID restrictions. So we didn't keep it at the temple. I think only a certain amount of people kept it in the temple. A lot of people kept it together in their homes. I kept it with my branches. I kept it with my branch and her family at her house. So to me, it was very weird. I didn't know what Passover was. You know, the whole foot washing thing, all of that was very strange. One thing I have to point out is they made sure that they knew that I knew that I had to give an offering, meaning money. So they're like, you know, we just want you to know that, you know, that it's very important that you know, give an offering. I was like, what do you mean an offering? And of course, my branch was like, oh, well, you know, you need to give money. I was like, wow, okay, sure. But so we, you know, I didn't give whatever they expect because it was my first time. I think I only gave like $5 each for each of us. So we keep it at her house. She does the foot washing. It was a little strange, you know, we do the whole thing and it's over. Then we keep studying and but I think April, I can't remember exactly when my second son was baptized because he came after us. But I wanted him, I forced him to get baptized. My kids had never been baptized in any church. My husband and I we were never really religious. We, you know, we believed in God and Christ. We tried churches, but none of them ever really stuck because, you know, it was always something. So my boys they were never baptized in any other church besides the Church of God, which kind of sucks. But so I forced him. I said, you know, I want you to be baptized. And at first he was like, oh, I don't want to. I said, well, come study, you know, study at first, see how you feel. So he started studying separately with a brother because he was behind me and my younger son. So while he was studying with the brother, me and my other son would study in another room with his sister. And so, you know, I guess he started to like it, and he was baptized. He kept second Passover. And that was that. So then, you know, little by little, we kept going. We started attending Saturday services. Not all of them. I think I started with just like one. I used to do the mid one, not the very morning and not the very last one. And then we started to do two, but I would let them know. I'm like, well, I'm going to go home now and be with my husband. I have to cook dinner, you know, so I don't know what they thought about that, but, so we would study, and then eventually they wanted me to study by myself. So they kind of pushed the boys towards the teen group because, you know, we're all separated by age. The boys go to the teen group with a brother who, you know, is their instructor and all that. I think they finished their 30. I'm not sure if they finished. I know I did. And then I was moved on to the countermeasures, the staff of Moses. So I was being taught by different sisters, a deaconess, you know, whoever was available. I finished that, and then I was like, man, I was really into it. I was like, this is great. This is amazing. I can't believe we have a father and a mother. So, you know, I start really going deep into it. I started attending most days. I think I used to go every day except maybe Thursday, because I would want to reserve some time for my husband because, you know, he wasn't too happy about the idea of me going every day. So I was trying to keep, like, you know, the balance and the peace. But I was going pretty much every day. So, you know, Mondays, for the most part, it was in education or preaching. Tuesday, you know, we have services. Wednesday, the same thing. I think it was preaching assembly. Thursday, I really didn't go. Fridays is preparation. Saturday is Sabbath. And then Sundays, I wouldn't go. It was very rare that you would catch me there on a Sunday. But I was going a lot. I was watching a lot of videos. I wanted to move up. I wanted my new song book. Because, you know, they give you everything in little pieces. Well, you can't get your new song book just yet. You have to be a little stronger in faith, because there's people out there who take the book and, you know, they use it against us and it's slander. And I'm like, wow, really? Like, I don't understand why, you know, it's beautiful. The songs we sing, well, some of them, because some of them I used to be like, but for the most part, the ones that we sang the most were nice songs. They were. So, you know, I wanted to become more faithful. I wanted to become a better gospel worker. So I was starting to do that. The boys in the beginning, they were home, but then they also started to, you know, because I used to say to myself, I should be the example for them. I should, you know, if they see that I'm doing more for the gospel work, they'll want to do it too, which they did. I'm trying to think after that. So yeah, so I finished all my studies. I'm going every day. And then the first incident happens, as I guess I'm going to say. I have a lot of tattoos. I don't know if you can see them. A lot. All over my arms, my legs. I have tattoos. So, and I knew at some point this was going to be something that was going to be addressed. I knew they were going to say something. So I used to, you know, for the most part, when I started going, I used to wear like little cardigans with long sleeve or half sleeve. So you wouldn't see all of them, right? You would only see like maybe up to here. So one day, my group leader, who was the Korean deaconess, she says, "Oh, would you like to help me in kids' room today?" And I said, "Oh, okay." I really don't want to say no. I said, "Why not?" You know. So we go and we're staying with the kids because after service, on Tuesdays and even on Sabbath, the kid room stays open, I think, till 9 or 10. So, the sisters can be together to preach practice, or if they want to preach or whatever mission they're doing. So we stay with the kids. So I went to help, and it's the pre-K kids. So I think between like 5 and 7. And of course, kids being kids, one little girl says, "Why do you have so many tattoos?" One boy goes, "They really make you look like a boy." I was like, "Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I had all this done before I started my life in Christ." And then the deaconess pulls me aside and she says, now we're in the image of God. We're in the image of Father and Mother. We have to present ourselves as basically being in God. So, there's a lot of members who have tattoos or not, but you really need to cover yours because, they go they're everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, I was embarrassed, because the kids already made me a little uncomfortable, but I know they're kids. But then she, basically doesn't even wait a day and she tells me. So, it hurt my feelings. So, I go home. I'm a very emotional person. I'm crying in the car. The kids are seeing that. My husband sees me. He's like, "What's wrong?" And I told him. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. That happened to you. But I don't understand why they would judge you for your tattoos. If you are baptized and you are starting your new life in Christ, that shouldn't matter." And it's true. But, I was hurt.
It's interesting that your husband there seemed to have an infinitely more, deeper understanding of what Christianity and the gospel is really all about than this entire church does. Just in that one statement, what the insight that's reflected there about what God is really like. Yeah, I find that interesting.
Yeah, my husband is he's a great man. Yeah. But yeah, so, the next day my branch texts me, "Oh, how are you?" And I told her, I was like, I was really hurt. I said, I knew it was going to happen, but it still hurt because I'm human. And she apologizes and she says, "Oh, the same thing the deaconess said. Oh, I'm so sorry that she made you feel that way. But, we have to present ourselves as, in the image of God, and God is, God is God." I was like, I get it. So I got over that. We're still doing our thing. The next thing that happened, and this was actually very, I guess in the very beginning. So this kind of all happened all at once, but I was trying to let it go and move past it. The next thing that I infinitely regret, and I will always regret, is how they were treating my son, the younger brothers. So he was it was a small group of teenage boys. It was my 2 sons, maybe about 5 or 6 teenage boys altogether. And they would all ignore him. They wouldn't talk to him. They would exclude him out of the conversations. They weren't acting like God, right? Because God is love. Mm-hmm. And no one was correcting them either. If the older brother, who's their instructor, who's in charge of the group, sees that, shouldn't he say, "Listen"? He doesn't have to embarrass them. He could pull them to the side and, "Listen, this is a new brother. We should be taking care of him. We should be in unity and love." No. My son comes to me, he says, "Mom, they're ignoring me. No one wants to talk to me." So I was like, "Are you sure that it's not just you? Because, sometimes you can be a little socially awkward." He's like, "No." So again, I was always going to my branch for advice and for, because this was all new to me. So she says, "Unfortunately, that could be part of the sin he committed in heaven." I was like, "Okay, I guess that makes a little sense." She's like, "He really needs to pray hard. He needs to write to Mother. You should pray and you should write to Mother as well." And back then I didn't have, because there's this
the website
where you can write to her and supposedly it gets to her. I was like, okay, so I had started a journal where I was writing letters to mother. So that's how I was writing letters to her. And I would write to her about my son and, please let him endure, let him overcome this. Um, I really want this to work for him. I want him to be close to God. I want to be close to God. So, I kind of let that slide. And, that was a very rough time for him. And I feel that I should have been a better mother, because anyone who knows me knows that I am very overprotective of my children. Like, you can call me names, you can throw rocks at me, you can spit at me, you can do whatever you want to me, but do not mess with my children. So for me to let that slide, because I thought it was, something a lesson he had to learn because it was coming from God, I feel like I shouldn't have. I should have walked out the minute that started to happen to him. And then you're also told not to intervene, because again, I'm very active in my children's lives. Like, if they're having an issue in school, I'm the first one to email the principal, the vice principal, anyone. Listen, my kid is having. So you're told you're not to not intervene because they have to build on their own faith. They need to, endure, and they need to basically deal with whatever's going on with them without you intervening. I was like, okay. So I tried to do that. And, eventually things got better, but a lot of the brothers left. By the time we left in December, it was only him and the teacher, because none of the teenagers stayed. I don't know if the parents left or whatever was going on, but the only other teenager who was in his group would fall asleep all the time. In between services, he would leave to take walks and go to the store. So, basically towards the end, it was just my son and the brother, the teacher. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of point out too, though, about how much control they have over people. The fact that you muzzled your maternal instinct, that you didn't do what is in your nature to do. A lot of times in these groups, you find that who you are gets suppressed and this new cult identity takes over. And even though like Odalys wanted to go and do what she does, you didn't, because now they have this control and this fear that they instill in you, and now you just submit all your decision making to them. Like, they take your decision making from you. So I don't think it's your choice. I think it was the decisions that they forced your hand to make. So I don't think you could really don't hold too much blame on yourself for that. It was a difficult situation that they had the control over you and the choices that were being made, because they had you scared and you thought it was the right thing to do because of the manipulation that they did. So I mean, I'd give yourself some forgiveness about that situation, and hopefully, it's traumatic for an adult, and it's also traumatic for the children. So, I'm hoping that, that bond, this experience, you could find a way to grow closer with your son through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jordan, you had something?
It shows just the power that is in that part of us, that pious part of us, that part of us that wants to connect with God, that wants to do the right thing, and how easily that and powerfully that can be taken advantage of and used for the advantage of somebody else. And that's what they did, because you have this powerful part of you as a mother that would do anything to protect your kids. And then at the same time, I think that it's kind of works together with that pious part of you, where you're thinking that actually you're just giving this up to trusting mother and seeking her and not necessarily stepping in. You're thinking that's the right thing to do. And that's really ultimately the best thing to do for your son. And so, it shows just how the level to which that part of people is just taken advantage of, and yeah, manipulated, and then people are ultimately just abused, just out of a natural, this inclination to do the right thing, to be pleasing to God, and all that, and to trust God for help, and yeah, it's this is just another example of just the overall culture of the WMS, where you have a mother and a son with this special case in some sense, where the son has these struggles. You've shared your own personal mental health issues, and just how, instead of coming into this group and finding people that are like loving you, like you said, and just really coming up underneath you to serve you and be there for you, it just, they turn the whole thing into this massive like guilt trip. And it's like, oh well, you need, even this situation with your son, it's like, oh well, this could be your son's sin in heaven. And so instead of coming and comforting you in that, saying, I can't imagine what that's like for you as a mother, to have a son who has these issues, and how hard that is for you, how hard that is for him. I'm so sorry. And I don't, whether you have great advice or not, just to be a compassionate person in that situation. And what do they do though? And I don't blame your branch, because she's just puppeting the brainwashing that she was injected with as well. But instead of being a person who was compassionate and could offer you some true comfort, it's just turns into more fear and guilt. It's like, oh, well, that might be because your son had a greater sin in heaven than most of us. And so you need, even that idea of like, you need to go right to mother. You need to go right to mother. You need to make sure you're praying. It's like, it puts this, what a massive weight to put on you. It's like, oh, you have this problem with your son. Your son has this issue. Oh, you better go get to writing. You start writing letters, because that's a problem. And it's on you now to make sure that what you need to be done happens. And that's going to involve you praying enough, and you writing enough letters, and you continuing to show your commitment. It's such a twisted, horrible setup that they create. And I'm so sorry for that. That was your experience.
Yeah, it was tough. It was, but we're working at it, and I just want to try my best to move forward.
Yeah. So where did your story progress from there? What, I guess, were there things that, because you were in the church for 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. So it probably, I'm guessing it didn't take too long before you started to have, some questions or concerns, or some, well, what's going on there? Or, so I guess kind of take us through some of that. What were some of the things you started to see that, that you couldn't just sweep under the rug, or it was just too much for you to just kind of continue to eat up?
I mean, I always had a lot of questions as far as like their wedding. Like, why was he marrying this woman? Did he actually marry her and, be with her and have kids? And, they didn't really talk much about details when it came to what they would always say, that, Father Ahnsahnghong came first, and that he came to reveal the last mystery of God, which is mother. But there was just a lot of stuff going on. Like, I know also, there was another time where, my mother-in-law was baptized, and she was studying. This was around, I think, the October feasts. She was even coming to the 5 a.m.s, but then her eyes started to bother her. She has a lot of problems with her eyes, and she was having a hard time seeing. So we're sitting in the temple in the sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And every morning, it's the very first sermon is always Kim Ju Chol. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, by the way. I really don't care. Kim Ju Chol sermon or a sermon from Mother, of course, pre-recorded. So she opens her phone to record so she can hear it later because she couldn't see the screen. You know, she was really having a hard time seeing. Her eyes would slowly start to close and tear a lot. So immediately I'm tapped by a sister in the back, and she's like, "Oh, she can't record." And I said, "Okay, all right, no problem. I'll shut it off." So we shut it off, and the service ends. And you know, I don't even get like 5 steps to the event room for our break, where another sister stops me, who is now a deaconess, and says, "Oh, sister, you know, I hope you know that, you know, recordings aren't allowed. You know, if your mother-in-law wants to listen to the sermons, she can find them on YouTube." I was like, okay. She shut off the phone. She didn't record. She was like, "Well, we're just letting you know." Okay. The same time, my branch is texting me, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You know, I forgot to tell you, you can't record." I was like, okay, that's already, should I stop?
No, we could keep going.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's already 2 people,
Yeah.
right? 2 or 3 people that already came to me and said, "Look, she can't." So then by the time I get up to the event room, of course, the Korean deaconess, my group leader, says, "Oh, sister, you know, I just want to let you know that no one can record." I said, "Yeah, I was already told by a few people."
Several times.
So they were
So-
incredibly concerned about this
The
little
recording.
clip that you might have recorded.
She didn't even get like 2
Interesting.
seconds to record.
Yeah.
So, and I was just like, wow, okay. I mean, by that point, my blood was boiling. I was like, we get it. She didn't record. And then of course my branch my branch comes to me, and she's like, "Oh, you know, I'm so sorry. You know, I just want to let you know it has to do with copyrights." And I was like, okay, she didn't record. You know,
now they're just
I know
making-
That's a lie.
She didn't record.
Right? I mean, right
Oh,
there,
yeah.
that was just a lie. It has nothing to do with copyright. What?
You know,
Yeah.
they just
Well,
don't want
I mean, it's-
what happens there to get out.
No, they don't want people to know what they're doing, what they're teaching, what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
Exactly.
copyright. What does that
it's a
even
little bit
mean?
weird. Yeah, it's a little bit weird because she's right. Usually, not everyone, but most of the sermons that are done for the first service, which is the Juchul Kim, they put that on YouTube. That's usually a YouTube video.
Mhm.
But then, you know, there are times where after it's done, you know, the pastor, the deacon, the whomever will get up and just ramble for who knows how long, saying whatever. You know, a lot of times it takes like over an hour. If you get like a talkative one, it'll just keep going and going. But what really bothers me about that is that they don't feel any shame about recording, because all the sermons are recorded. They
Mhm.
record it themselves and they keep it, and then they upload it after they're done. Like, so they could record, and then all throughout the building, cameras everywhere for every like office and temple. There's cameras everywhere. So sometimes you'll see like, you know, a leader
Inside
sitting there,
too.
inside,
Mhm.
all around the inside. So then you'll see like them watching the camera and then being like, "Why is that brother talking to that sister? Go." And you know, get to go and like interrupt and break it up. And I thought it was just video. I found out, you know, that some of the locations, I don't know if it's all, but at least one I was in, they were doing both video and audio, where they would record you, and you know, they could circle back and listen to what conversations you were having. And I had no idea, you know, I had no idea that was happening until I went to an older deacon. Like, I was a deacon, but this was one who was there for a while, like the number 2 of the location. And I wanted to tell him like about something. He's like, shh, no. Like, we have to go like outside or somewhere else to talk about this. And he explained that, you know, before, some of the previous leader before would have it recorded but wouldn't listen. But the current one was circling back and listening to people's conversations that he thought, would be interesting to hear what they were saying in private. So, so if they can record, then that's my point. If they can record you, it's strange that you had like a parade of people coming to you and explaining no recording. So it's just a weird double standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that must have been very frustrating, especially the fact that
mm-hmm. And that wasn't even that wasn't even the only thing that happened with my mother-in-law. She again, her eyes were really bad, so she was seeing her eye doctor and everything. So the eye doctor told her that she had to wear those shades, that cover the sunlight.
Yeah.
So she had to wear it at all times. So October, I think, I had started my rotation in kids' room blessing. So I wasn't able to be with her, for the service or for the study, because now I'm in kids' room. And, she told me, she's like, I have to wear these shades. I don't know if I should go because I don't want to make, anyone uncomfortable, and I don't want to feel uncomfortable. I said, don't worry, let me find out. I asked my team leader, I said, listen, she can't really take them off because the light, the sunlight is too bright for her. Is it okay if she keeps them on in the sanctuary so she can keep the service? Yes, yeah, don't worry. I'll talk to pastor and I'll talk to the greeters so there's no issues. What happened? She walks in. She's told by the greeter, I'm sorry, you have to take those off. And she says, well, no, I can't take them off. Oh, well, then you have to keep service in the fellowship. She proceeded to keep the service in fellowship. She didn't like it. She said it was too loud because in the fellowship, they put those big speakers and the screen that, behind the screen. I don't know how it is in other churches, but in this one, the fellowship is basically where the young kids keep service. But it also becomes the place where they congregate after the services. That's where you eat lunch and dinner. And then, so behind that screen, it lifts up because that's the kitchen. So that's where like they serve. I don't know if that makes sense. So, for the services, they put the screen down, and it was just very loud. It can be very loud. It's very, because the kids too, some of the kids, they don't stay still and stuff. And you have the teachers telling them to be quiet and stuff. So it's very distracting. It's not the same as when you're in the sanctuary. And so she felt uncomfortable. She left. I felt so bad. I apologized to her over and over. I said, I'm so sorry. It was my fault. I should have communicated better. I didn't mean for that to happen. She stopped coming for a while. I kept texting her and calling her, how are you doing? When are you coming back? When are you coming back? One day during a Sabbath, it was a break, and I said, I'm going to go see my mother-in-law because she literally lives like very close to the church. So I went to go see her, and I'm like, how are you doing? Passover's coming up. It's very important that you keep the Passover. And she's like, can I show you something? I said, okay, sure. So she proceeds to show me Bernadine's story. And immediately I'm like, Berdine, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Berdine's story. And I said, no, I know this guy. Because I had seen you before. I didn't get into that, but I told you over the phone. I said, I know this guy. He's a slanderer. He hasn't even been to the church. He doesn't know what he's talking about. The girl must have her own issue, her own personal issues inside herself that she wants to blame it on the church. That you can't believe what people say. I didn't watch it. I didn't. And I was like, please, then she starts to ask me about Ahnsahnghong. Well, what was the miracles that he gave us, because Jesus Christ, he performed miracles. What was the miracles that Ahnsahnghong performed? I said, well, the miracle is that he brought back the Passover. He brought back all the feasts, he brought back true salvation. So, I was like, we kept talking a little bit. I said, please think about it. Please, I really hope you keep Passover. But she didn't. She didn't return. She, she just said, she kept saying that it was her eyes. And I was like, I don't think it is, but that's, I'm just going to let her be. It's okay. But I was still hurt about it because it was just handled so badly within the church. It was just not handled properly. That's one thing. There's a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of changing of plans and stories. You'll go in for an education on Monday and, oh no, we're not doing the education. We're going to go preaching. But I don't want to go preaching. I came for an education. That's me personally. That's how I felt. So I didn't really like that. They're always changing. And I brought that up to my branch. She was like, well, we have to, what's the word she used? Basically, like, we have to kind of go with it. Yeah, adapt. Yeah, like, we have to adapt, we have to adapt to it. And I was like, I really didn't, that never really sat well with me. Like, the whole, we're going to do this, but no, it turns into that. But it was whatever. I was still trying. I'm trying to think what else. Let me look at my notes. So after that, oh yes, this is a big one for me because I was very confused and very hurt. And this is when I started to ask more questions. So we open up the Bible Center in Union City. They don't call it a temple church. It's a Bible center. It's very small. Oh, mother, it's open. Mother bless it. We got to go preaching. We got to get those fruits. We got to get people. Everyone's excited. Oh my gosh, they finally opened Union City. So we're all going preaching. It's a Sunday, which is very rare for me. I don't really go over there on Sundays. And I said, man, I really, really want to bear fruit. I'm not going to go home until I bear fruit. I went preaching, I think, almost the entire day. So my preaching partner and I, we stopped these two young girls. We start to tell them, oh, would you like to come for a Bible study? We just opened our center and we're just inviting people. So they come, and I think the study they gave was Passover, Way to the Eternal Life. And immediately the younger sister's like, oh, I want to get baptized. Oh my God, let's get baptized. And she's 17, so she can't get baptized without permission. So we had to get consent from her father. The older sister, I think she was 18 or 19, and she was baptized. So we were so happy. We take our pictures, they get baptized. Then we take the younger sister to the house so the father can sign the paper. She also gets baptized. So I'm excited. I'm like, oh my God, I bore fruit. This is amazing. It's not a family member. Because, I was usually like, I brought my mother-in-law, I brought my stepson, I brought my boys. So this is an actual fruit that I can take care of. The pastor and everyone's always saying, you have to take care of your fruit.
And
you have to. Go ahead.
I just want to add into like the feeling of bearing fruit, because I don't think that people outside the church would understand. And I'm sure Jordan, without being there, you don't know. Bearing a fruit, meaning bringing somebody in and having them get baptized, is such a strong feeling. You almost feel like, and the way that it's related, the way that you believe it, is almost like you are having a child of your own. Like you feel like this one, like you want to protect this, like you care a lot about them, and you just feel like, wow, like this is a gift from God. You're told the only way you can bear fruit is through God. And like, if you're not pleasing to God, you cannot do this. So it means that God's happy with you if you can finally bring somebody. And it's also your way, like it's saying that the only way for you to truly repent is to bring somebody else to repentance, meaning you're not, no matter how many times like you try to live your life in a better way, no matter how many sacrifices you make, unless you bear fruit, you're not really repenting. You have not repented correctly. So all of these things kind of add up, and also that you cannot go to heaven without bearing fruit. They say like everything on this earth is going to be destroyed. The only thing that you get to keep is your fruit. Like that's the only thing you get to take with you. So to bear fruit is such a big deal. So now, like as somebody who who's bore fruit, you brought people before, you've recruited. However, it's always been like connection preaching. This is the first time you did something that nobody likes to street preach. Nobody likes to go out and invite strangers, but you did it, and you really felt like God just blessed you with these members, with
Yes.
these two sisters. So you are very attached to them. I could just explain, like, this is the feeling that people go through. So
Yeah.
I'll let you go.
Yeah, it's, you really feel that way. You're very excited. And that is what they tell you. They say that the only two times your name goes in the book of life is when you're baptized and when you bear fruit. Because every time you bear fruit, on the bottom, they write down who was the person that preached to them, So there you go. Your name is in the book of life. They make that a point. So I was super excited. I said, oh my God, Father and Mother have finally forgiven my sins. I want to do my best to take care of them. They're young and they're so sweet, and this is great. So so they're baptized and whatnot, and then I think they were invited to keep a Tuesday evening service. But around that time, it's the daylight savings thing, so the sun goes down at 4 o'clock over here in Jersey when it's daylight savings. It's terrible. So I think service is at 8 around those months. And the father, being a dad, he's like, I don't want my daughters coming home that late walking. I don't want them to walk home that late after the service. So I was like, okay, so I'm willing to do this. I want to do this. I sat my boys down. I said, boys, listen, when you guys come home from school, we're gonna get dressed and we're gonna go to Union City every Tuesday. This has to be done because I want the girls to continue to study and come and get closer to God.
How far were you from Union City? I know Union City is like right outside of Manhattan, and you said you were
like across
Jersey?
from the river. I was maybe about 20, but the thing is, the route to take, I think it's Route 3 around that time, because the Lincoln Tunnel's right there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of traffic. It's not. So, and parking is another thing. Union City parking is terrible. Terrible. So it was, but I was willing to do it. I wanted to do it. And, I get a call from, actually, no, let me backtrack a little. One day I did pick them up for a study, and they're studying with the teacher or whatnot. And then they're asking questions and I'm answering them. There's nothing wrong with that, right? My branch would answer my questions. So, after that study, I get told by the deaconess that's now in charge. Well, not in charge, but she was part of Union City. She says, sister, when they ask questions, you don't answer. You have to let the teacher answer. I said, okay. I mean, it's just questions about Father and just simple questions. I said, okay. So I was like, whatever. I take him home. And then that's when, the dad says, because I'm in contact with the younger sister. I'm like, how are you doing? How's everything going? She's like, oh, she tells me my dad doesn't want us to walk home, so I don't think we're going to be able to go. I said, no, I can pick you up and drop you guys off, or you guys can walk there and I'll take you home. She's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. I get told by my team leader that I no longer need to take care of them, that the teacher who's teaching them is going to take over, and that they can walk home. I was like, why? The father doesn't want that. They're not going to go. No, it's okay. They're not too far from their house. They can walk home. You don't want them to continue to come to church for you. You don't want them to idolize you. You want them to build their own faith, and you want them to seek out God, not you. And I said, okay, you're right. That might be true, because they're young and we're getting along pretty well. We're laughing and stuff. So I said, maybe that's true. Maybe they're going to start idolizing me instead of, going to church for God, for Father and Mother. So I said, okay, no problem. As long as the teacher's taking care of them, and then again, after that, my group leader comes to me. Oh, I just want to let you know that, the sister who's teaching them, she's going to take over. I said, yeah, I know. My team leader already told me. She was like, and I said, oh, and that's fine. I said, but listen to me, deaconess. This is very important. These girls do not have a mother figure. Their mother abandoned them when they were younger. And she left back to her home country. Do not teach them Jerusalem mother yet. You have to build a relationship with them, because if you bring that up, they're not going to understand, and they're going to retreat because they don't understand that big bond that they make us, like, a bond between a mother and her children is there's nothing bigger out there than a bond between a mother and her children. So you can't cut those girls aren't going to be like, what? No, I don't know what that's like. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, sister. Okay, no problem. Okay. What happens? I text the young sister, I think maybe 2 days later, blocked. She blocked me. The other sister, I think her phone got disconnected. When I asked the teacher who was teaching them, who took over, what did you study with them last? Guess what they studied? Jerusalem mother.
They probably felt some sort of way that you, as somebody who probably wasn't like a teacher, like an official teacher, was trying to, who knew these two. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they probably were just being defiant, like, we'll do because we know best. They probably had that attitude. Yeah. They didn't really want to build up.
Oh, what does she know? We're the teachers, and we have the authority here.
Been here a year and a half or 2 years or whatever. So whatever it was, but I was hurt and I was so confused, because you're told time and time again, you should take care of your fruit. You need to be there for them, but you're telling me not to take care of my fruit.
As a way to feel better about the situation, just know that the fact that they didn't listen to you actually really helped these two young girls, because they left.
Oh, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful now that she blocked me.
To you.
I'm so thankful. But I knew that was going to be it, because you can't talk about having this bond with a mother when you don't have that yourself. I can say that because the bond I have with my sons, it's a true bond. But to say that to two young girls who were abandoned by their mother, who have a sickly father that they have to take care of, come on, you can't. No, but whatever. So I was very hurt. I was confused. Again, I go to my branch and I'm like, I don't understand. Why did that happen? Oh, they weren't ready. They blocked you because they weren't ready to hear the truth. They were still blinded. Okay. I try to get over it.
Yeah.
But I started to ask questions like, I forgot I know I asked a few questions, but my whole thing was I would ask a few different people because I wouldn't get an answer, right? Or an answer that I guess I thought was something that I can understand. I couldn't understand some of the answers. So one day I'm at work and my team leader calls me and she just straight up says, sister, you're asking too many people too many questions. I'm your team leader and you should ask me any questions you have. That's why I'm here. I was like, what? I said, to be truthful, the only people I usually ask questions to was my branch. I always went to her first, my team leader, my group leader, or the other deaconess who we kind of got close with. I was like, who else am I talking to? Like, tell me who said this to you and what I said so I can understand. I'm not doing that because it's just going to start problems. I've dealt with that before. I was like, please, I was begging her. Like, I'm not going to go to the person and say, I can't believe you were talking about me. No, I wanted to understand what I did wrong so I could fix it. No, that was like, oh, you're a beautiful person. Sister, no, you're great. Father, mother, love you.
What kind of questions were you asking that they were?
I can't remember, Anthony. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I truly can't remember because I would ask questions, sometimes it was simple things. I know I had asked a few questions about Passover because Passover was coming up and I really wanted my son to keep Passover. So, I lost my train of thought.
So you were asking questions about Passover.
I was asking questions about Passover, like, oh, can my mother keep it with us here? I forgot. I think, so that happens and I'm in tears. I'm in literal tears. Thank God I was the only one there. Everyone had left. And, I was taking care of what I had to take care of. And I was in tears. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, Father, Mother. What am I doing wrong? And then I was just like, man. So like I told my branch when when I told her we weren't going back anymore, and she asked why, I said, I gave her the rundown of everything. I said, so you know what? I don't know how this I should say it or not, but I put my big girl panties on. I got over it, and I kept at the gospel work. Right? So okay, I distanced myself a little bit, but I was still doing what I had to do. I also became part of the kitchen committee because I felt I had to earn my place in heaven. I had to do more for the gospel work, and what better way than the kitchen? Kitchen is not easy. Everyone who knows, who's been in the kitchen committee, kitchen is not easy.
No.
So I'm there and I'm like, yes, I'm getting so many blessings. My God, this is amazing. Oh my gosh, I think maybe 1 week, I was like, man, there is no unity here. There is no love, nothing. You had sisters talking behind each other's back, no organization whatsoever. If Kwansanim wasn't delegating, it was like, no, you have to do this. No, I have to do that. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I couldn't understand. I was like, I thought we were supposed to love each other. And I have to say, a little piece of my faith broke being there, because I really thought this was where God was. And if God is here, you don't talk behind each other's back. You don't treat each other like that. And not only not talk behind each other's back, but then act like everything is okay. Oh, sister. I've never been one with fakeness. I don't deal with fake people. I don't.
Which I'm sure the dark contract, like if you contrast this experience versus the love bombing and the big smiles when you first show, it's a very different thing, because
it was the complete opposite.
Yeah, it's very miserable. Like, there's a lot of that, especially, in an environment like that. It's just not the front that they put. They also put this front, like, we are so united in love. We are so united. And, they sing about it. They say how, they work as one unit under God, but they're just as dysfunctional, like, as anybody else.
They had a preaching assembly about unity. And the whole thing on the screen was our hands holding together, unity between brothers and sisters. I was like, what are they talking about? There is no unity. There isn't.
That's why they make propaganda saying that there's so much unity. So you believe, like, we are the most united church because we have one goal, one mission. We follow Mother.
No.
But in reality, it's just propaganda that they use to make you feel that way. So you have pride in the church, but it's full of all sorts of the same dysfunctions. Yes. It's not really the way that they want people to view it.
Yeah. So, that really upset me. I was so hurt, but I chose to deal with this situation on my own. I didn't tell anybody. I was a little distant, when we would go preaching, I was really not into it. The deaconess who, I got close with, we went preaching one day in Jersey Gardens Mall, because, they love Jersey Gardens. They love Jersey Gardens. They love their Walmarts, their Targets. Anyway. And she was like, what's going on with you? I said, it's not something I'm ready to talk about yet, because I was trying to deal with it on my own. So I'm praying every day to Father and Mother, please guide me, please. What is my lesson in this? What is going on? So, and not only that, I'm suffering. I'm in pain, because I'm telling myself, Father and Mother sacrificed so much for us. Mother's here in the flesh, in human form, and look at how we are with each other. And I'm just like crying every day when I go to work, and, oh, I can't believe that we're such sinners, and I'm just going through it. And then, I keep praying or whatever. I finally just tell myself, okay, so, I can't control my sisters. I'm going to do the best I can for me and for them. I'm going to be the best that I am of me in and out of Zion. So, I got over it. The sisters were, they would bicker here and there, and I would try to keep the peace. And, so, I finally spoke to my team leader and my branch about it. And they were like, oh, this is a great lesson you're learning, because now you know that how much father and mother love us, the sacrifice. And just so you know that even in Zion, there's false prophets and people of weak faith. Oh, God. So, and I was like, yeah, that's what I kind of, came to conclusion. Like, it is what it is. Everyone is human. We all have mistakes, and we are so blessed that father and mother continue to give us these chances to work, to get better and to work on our faith, to build that oil of faith. And so that was that, so I remained in the kitchen. The kitchen, again, I said, is not easy. When Ahnsahnghong and the pastor went to Korea, I think it was for 3 weeks. Those 3 weeks in kitchen were not easy, because the sisters, they all want to be the boss. They all want to take over. And this is how Ahnsahnghong likes it. I remember one day, mind you, we were doing, the menus were left. This is what it's going to be for the next 3 Sabbaths, for lunch, for dinner. So, one sister's like, well, Ahnsahnghong says she likes the sausages to be cut this way. I looked at the one sister and I just kept cutting. I was like, no, I want to go home. And I just kept going. It was done. It doesn't matter. The brothers swallow the food. Swallow it. They don't care. It's food. And for the most part, most brothers are thankful that they were even giving them food. Real hot food, meals made fresh, not frozen. Fresh meals, fresh veggies, fresh meats, everything. I think with the exception of maybe the meatballs, that it was just too many meatballs to make on a Sabbath, because we did make fresh meatballs. I think spaghetti and meatballs one day when it was like a Wednesday night where they go preaching, and we would cook for dinner. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. So that's that, so the kitchen committee technically is only in charge of lunch for Sabbaths, and cleaning the kitchen. You should clean the oven, the stove. Everything needs to be cleaned and prepped for Saturday. Some nights we had to also prep for dinner, because the sisters team that was, up to prep for dinner, they wouldn't show up. Only 1 or 2 would show up. So we had to, in a sense, pick up their slack. So we're prepping for lunch, we're prepping for dinner, and we're also cleaning. It was, but I'm thinking, this is just storing up blessings for me. I'm getting my blessings in heaven. I'm going to heaven. My older son.
The way that it sounds is like a terrible job, like something that you'd get paid for, something that you have an agreement with. What you're doing is technically volunteerism, but the commitment you have doesn't feel like volunteerism. This is your job. This is your responsibility. You need to get this done. The commitment isn't like, oh, well, if it gets done, it gets done. And if something does go wrong, you guys are going to get a rebuke. You guys are going to be mistreated in the church if things are not operating 100%. This is the meal. This is the food. Like, if dinner is not out when dinner needs to be out, or lunch is not out when lunch needs to be out, it's, oh, we're going to be late for service because kitchen committee this, kitchen committee that. So it's a lot of pressure and a lot of mouths to feed. It's not easy. And it just sounds like a big obligation that you're undertaking.
Listen.
And it's just a hard thing to do. Like, I've cooked too, in the church, and it's not easy, and you're under pressure, and coming together is really important in these situations. But to have that kind of pressure constantly, opposed to just like once a month, like, a brother's team would be cooking for once a month.
Yeah.
But that constant, and it's a lot to clean, and everything they're. I've never seen a place go so deep as to, like, every day, like, clean the wall, like they, like mop the walls, basically. Like they're very, very particular about how clean and organized and things like that. Everything needs to be. That's definitely a lot of stress you're under, and then everything you do like little things, not even just you, but even like, your mother-in-law, you're getting constantly bombarded with these small little things, like, and then the one joy you had of bearing fruit, they go and they spoil that for you.
Ugh,
And,
yeah.
it's just, it's hard to find joy in a situation like that when they keep making a miserable environment.
Yeah.
So go on. So you're having
Yeah,
frustration with the kitchen.
one other thing I really wanted to point out. While I was in kitchen committee, I used to go to preparation every Friday. My son started to come with me, my older son, and he would clean, and I mean, he would do everything in the fellowship by himself. And once my mom got baptized and she saw that, she wasn't happy. But as the teaching goes, I really want to read this teaching, Mother's Teaching. I had to bring out this horrible new songbook. Although others do not work, let us work faithfully without complaining. When we work with the mindset of an owner, we can work with joy and ease. So this was my thinking. My son is doing the work of God. He's doing it for his blessing. So even though it did bother me a bit, I was like, but he was picking up chairs by himself, putting them to the side, cleaning tables, sweeping, mopping, and then setting up the fellowship by himself. I remember that one Friday we didn't go. I think I was feeling sick or my son was sick. And that Saturday, a sister from the kitchen committee says, "Oh my God, sister, what happened to you guys? None of the brothers showed up and all the sisters from the kitchen had to set up fellowship." I was like, "I'm so sorry. My son was sick. We couldn't come." They were so used to my son going and doing it that they all stopped going. My son was doing all of that by himself.
Yeah. And that and
So
it's
my mom was
definitely
not
labor. It's like labor trafficking over there.
happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Towards our last few months there, I noticed like some older members would come, but they would come a little later because that was another thing. I would go on the earlier side. Most people would go around 7:30. I would try to get there by 6 so I could spend as much time as I could doing what I could and then still leave at a decent time to go and prep my tithes and my offerings and my clothes and make sure that everything was ready before Sabbath. So I would spend maybe 3 to 4 hours there to head home, to shower, and then, get all our tithes because I was tithing for all of us, offering for all of us. And I was working a minimum wage job, $13 an hour, part-time, but I was tithing for all of us. And then when I got the other job that I'm in now, the part-time job that, I'm a sterile processing technician. Of course, I get paid more. I started to equal that, the 10% for me, plus for my kids, plus the offerings, plus even though the brown offering folder that I didn't really get into it, but I started my own business and I felt guilty about wanting something for myself, something like that, like wanting it to be successful. And, I specialize in bath and body products. So I felt guilty for wanting that for myself because as a sinner, as anyone in the Church of God would tell you, you shouldn't want things of the physical world. You shouldn't want physical things. You should only want spiritual blessings. That's it. So I was like, I feel really guilty about this. I went to my branch and I said, "Listen, do you think I should give up on this?" She was like, "Don't give up on it, but make sure that it doesn't come before the gospel work." And, starting your own business is no easy task. No easy task. So I was struggling with that. So whatever profit I would make from my business was going directly to the church, whether it was for free contributions, whether it was for the brown offering folder, which has 3 categories. It has Zion offering, it has thanks offering, and it has overseas offerings. I used to make sure that I completed every offering once a month.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yep.
And it wasn't $1 or $2. It was a decent amount.
Yeah. And
so I would do that. I would also, I'm sorry to cut you off. I would buy things for the kitchen. when the kids' room needed something, they needed a new broom, they needed a new mop, they needed a detergent, they needed water, I would get that. And out of my money, I wouldn't expect anything. I made soaps plenty of times because they like to give gift bags to the new members, to the new sisters, to make them feel welcome. And I that's what I do. I make soap. I was like, oh well, maybe I can make soaps for everybody. I used to make a lot of soap for them. All my money, my ingredients, my material, all of it. So I was giving a lot of money. I was giving a lot of money. But yeah, so I forgot where I was going with that, but
I did want to bring up for Jordan, who might not be familiar, because you're talking about the brown envelope and all these different offerings. So Jordan, what you typically would do when you got your income, there's tithe, which is like you don't even count it. So whatever you made before taxes taken out. So like let's just say it's $1,000, you actually net $700. So you give $100, so you're left with $600 out of that $1,000. Whatever to the government, and then 10% off the pre-tax amount, the gross. Then every single Sabbath offering, you have to give an amount per service. So 3 services, so that's 3 different offerings every single week. Every feast day for every service. So Passover has 1, unleavened bread has 2, resurrection 2, Ascension Day 2, and it goes on and on and on, because it's not just 7. I think there's a total of like 10 different days where you have to give additional offerings. And then she's talking about a brown offering, a brown envelope offering. So beyond what you give weekly, with your tithe and your per service offering, there's a brown envelope, which is a monthly offering where there's 3 different categories within one envelope. And although that one is they say it's optional, it's like they'd say any gospel worker ought to be giving this one. So you have to give this additional offering, but then it's, they don't use your tithe for the food or for anything else. So you give a monthly food contribution. If you're in a committee, like she's in the kitchen committee, you have to give additional things. And then it's like, oh, we want to do construction, give additional money. Everything that they want to do, they take additional. It's free will offering, they call it. And then,
all the regular tithing and all that, is it ever communicated to you guys where that money goes? If it's not going to the provision of just the daily operations of the church and the food
go ahead. I'm sorry. With me, I asked where the tithe was going.
You asked where it went,
and where the offering because they have a study tithe, right? The law of tithe.
Yeah.
So the deaconess who gave me that study explained it a little, but I went ahead and asked again my branch, like, where is my tithe going? Where are the offerings going? So the tithe, according to my branch, goes to God, which means it goes to Korea, which means it goes to Zhang Gil Jah. The offerings, they go to the church. The 3 offerings for Sabbath, the offerings for the feast and all that, according to them, goes directly to the church for whatever they need it for. And then like Anthony was explaining, the brown envelope tells you where it goes. So thanks offering is thanks to God, and the church. Zion is specifically for our Zion. And then you have overseas, which is for overseas. So but that's because I asked. So.
Okay.
But again, I don't know if that's true. This is what was told to me by my branch.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Everything, all that is speculation. I mean, they do use some of the tithe money for if they're going to purchase a new church building or things like that. They'll dip into that because they're not going to just ask the members to come out of pocket and spend multi-million-dollar on a new building. So there's some of that is used for that, but it's definitely not to the amount. And there might be some things that they will have to pay for. Usually they try to cover everything as much as they can, but they will dip into the tithe a little bit. But it's definitely, there's more coming in than going out. It's like they're sitting on a mountain of cash.
And you're
Yeah. So
told that. Go ahead, Jordan.
I was just gonna say the moral of the story is they like money and they like to coerce their members into giving a lot of money regularly. I mean, just the fact that sounds like they specify 10% before tax. I mean, that kind of says it all about, kind of their intentions behind it all. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah. It becomes like death of a thousand cuts because they will get a little bit from like, here's your tithe. Okay, that's the big amount. But then there's all these little things that pop up all around you. So, you bleed out a little bit here, a little bit there, and you keep on giving to all these different directions, all these different causes. It's like, oh, well, now we need you to do this. Now we need you to give for that. Now we need you. And it's like, if you ever have to say no to any of these things, they look at you like, you can't even give a little bit for this cause. You can't even give a little. And it's like, well, I gave 10 other things just this month. So,
and then at the same time, they will shame members and make them feel like they're doing something wrong if they're putting too much time into their careers or being successful with different, worldly quote unquote aspirations where they could make more money. Well, that's looked down on. So in many cases, they kind of, shame and guilt members into living in poverty almost. And then they still demand the money. And then when you can't give the money, which really is their fault in the first place because of how they shame you for wanting to make more money. They shame you for not being able to give that money. And so it's just kind of another example like we've talked about before, Anthony, just how that they'll create the problem. They'll create the problem for you, and then they'll shame you and make you feel terrible for that problem existing as if it's your fault, when really it's they're the ones instigating all of it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And yet they make it a known fact. They like to compare Americans to Koreans a lot. They make it a known fact that in Korea, all the churches are taken care of by the members' money, members' offerings. That when Union City first opened up, the pastor was like, thanks to Father and Mother and the General Assembly, we were able to open it. But, the members have to take care of it. You have to take care of your home, your Zion, because a lot of members were transferred to Union City to, take care of it. A deacon and a deaconess, which I'm sure was an arranged marriage because he's Hispanic and she's Korean. They were in charge and they sent other members, and all the members had to contribute to it. And not only those members, we also too, we were expected to not only contribute for our Zion, but now Union City. The sisters in Union City for their evening services or whatever activities they had over there, they had to rotate cooking in their homes to take the food to the Bible Center. And when they finally started keeping Sabbaths over there, the same, because there was no kitchen. They have no kitchen in Union City. Well, I don't know if they do now, but I know when I was there. So sisters from Union City had to take turns cooking for the members. I mean, then again, it was only maybe like 15, 20 members, but that's still a lot of people. And they would have to. So they made it a point that whoever they transferred there was from that area, from Burger Line, Union City. I forgot what else is in that area. So, but so it's a lot. So it was just, and he also, I still remember one time the pastor too, he said, he was like, I remember a member who needed mother's help. She wanted, mother to help her with such and such thing. But when we looked to see if she was tithing, she wasn't tithing. Do you really think mother's going to help her if she's not tithing? So I was like, wow, I guess not, because you have to tithe. That belongs to God. And in the, the law of tithe, they make it a point to let you know that, 10% of whatever you make in this world belongs to God, because God is the one that gives it to you in the first place. So yeah, that was, yeah, and I just, I think Kelsey said this once, like, you see the red flags, but it's like you still want to try, and you think to yourself, where am I going to go? What other church is keeping the feast of Christ, of Jesus Christ? Jesus Christ kept all these feasts. He kept the Passover. He kept the Sabbath. Where am I going to find that? So you don't really think like, man, this could happen to me. I thought I was smarter than that, but it happens to all of us. And it's just like, I don't know why. Sometimes I'm so embarrassed because I cannot believe that I let this go on for so long, catching these red flags, but one last thing I want to mention about kitchen, and not only kitchen, in general, we have a lot in Belleville. There's a lot of Spanish members who only speak Spanish, or who, they're trying to learn English. One thing that was made a point, that Ahnsahnghong made a point, was she didn't want people, the kitchen committee, which was mainly Spanish, she didn't want them to speak Spanish because she knew some of, not much. The pastor knew, she didn't. So we were discouraged from speaking Spanish to each other. But on the other hand, they were allowed to speak Korean whenever they wanted, in front of whoever they wanted. But that's okay. I can't speak my native language, but you can speak yours. I was like, well, they are the chosen ones. So I shouldn't question it. Bad of me to question that. I'm so sorry, Father and Mother. So, I wanted to point that out there because I remember one day she was so upset because we were all talking in Spanish. It comes naturally sometimes. I speak Spanglish. Whatever I don't know in Spanish, I say it in English. So she was like, please stop speaking Spanish. And we all just looked at each other, and I was like, oh. But every time they were congregating, they were allowed to speak Korean, and we didn't understand what they were saying. For all we knew, they were saying something about us.
They probably were.
Oh.
They probably were. Yeah. So you mentioned ignoring the red flags for a time, but obviously the fact that you are here now having this conversation with us tells us that there came a point where you stopped ignoring the red flags. And so what brought you to that point where you said, okay, enough is enough. This is something I cannot ignore. And you came out. So
it was May, and after Pentecost, and I start to feel like this, being in the church, doing all of this, keeping the 5 a.m.s. I was doing pray daily every day with my boys. I was waking up my boys at 4:45 a.m. every day so we could keep prayer time at 5 a.m. because Mother would sacrifice sleep to pray at 5 a.m. So I was doing that with them. And then I was doing a bunch of other stuff. But I started to feel like this was more of a burden than a blessing. And immediately I felt so guilty. So guilty. I was like, oh my gosh, Father, Mother, please forgive me. I'm so sorry. I was praying. Praying night and day, praying nonstop. I would pray on my knees with the veil, because technically any prayer that you do, if you don't have your veil, it doesn't count. So the feelings sort of subside. They were still there, but I was still going, doing my thing. The pastor starts talking about, Mother said that this is going to be the year when the gospel work is completed. Mother wants to go home. And, whatever Mother says, she's God, it's going to happen. She's going home. The gospel work is going to be completed. So you know what that means, right? It's the end of the world. The war between Russia and Ukraine, Palestine and Israel, that was happening. And I'm like, oh my gosh, man, I think it's true. Father's coming. Mother wants to go home. So I start to get a little anxious about it, because even though by then I'm like, oh, I can't wait for Father to come. My God, I want to go home. I want to go to heaven. You always feel like you haven't done enough. You always feel that way. Like, I haven't done enough. Am I really ready for father? Or my kids? Not so much me. Believe me. Are my kids ready? My mother, who had just been baptized, are they ready? I really, really want them to go to heaven. I want my dad to go to heaven. He hasn't come. I want my husband. He's not ready. He's very adamant about not going. Why? So I start to worry. And even one day I sat down with my boys, because I'm very honest with them. I'm like, guys, you guys noticed that pastor keeps saying that that's it, 2023. And they're like, oh yeah, mom, he's probably just saying that so people can preach more and become more active in the gospel work. None of us really know, and I was like, yeah, that's true, but mother said it. They're like, no, mom, don't worry, so I was like, oh God. But then, the script started to change a little bit. I don't know what happened. I don't know if word got out. I don't know, because I wasn't looking in the internet yet. It went from she wants to go home to the mission statement is we're going to open 800,000 Scions by the end of this year. So, for the most part, the end of the world, going home, that was it. That was what was said. So I was like, okay, maybe mother changed her mind and she wants to give us more time. But the feeling started to get more and more. I became very depressed at first. I didn't want to do anything. I was going to work. I was a zombie. Even with work, I want to make that a point too, because I remember Anthony, I don't know if it was Esperanza's interview. You said that they find a way to basically ostracize you, like basically take you away from it. And it's true, because when I started the job, I was very, I'm a new person. I don't want to be around worldly people. My coworkers, a lot of them, they're into the world. They're talking a lot, and I don't want that. I'm a changed person, my direct coworker. So basically I'm part-time and I'm there to help her. So we're literally like in the same room the entire day. She's a Christian. She follows Sunday-based church. Her and her husband go, and she said, oh, I was so happy because, I was going to preach to you, but you told me you're going to church. And I was like, yeah, but, we go on Saturday because that's the proper day. She was like, oh. And things were always a little weird with her.
Yeah.
And when she asked me, she was like, so does your church have like a pastor? I said, well, right now we're led by an elder, but yes, there's pastors, because at that time, the pastor who's now a pastor was an elder. So things were a little weird. And one day I asked her, I was like, so why do you go to church? She was like, well, me and my husband were having a lot of problems, and we seeked out counseling. And it so happened to be that the counselor was a Christian. The counselor invited us to church, and my husband changed. He was so happy with the word. He changed. And I was like, man, Satan is really tricking my coworker into thinking that this church is the true church because it saved her marriage. Yeah. That was my thought. On top of, I basically made myself the oddball. I would barely talk to anybody. I would step away. Like if it was lunch, usually they would take lunch around 12:30. Everybody would be in the room. I would wait till everybody took lunch, so I would sit by myself. I didn't speak much to anybody. It was weird with me and one of my coworkers. Like he tried saying hi to me a few times, and I would say hi, but it was just so weird. I didn't go to my boss has a yearly cookout. Falls on a Saturday, you can't go out, right? Mm-hmm. They holiday parties, grab bags, anything. And not that I don't really celebrate holidays. We were already on our way out from celebrating holidays because my kids are grown. And honestly, my kids don't need Christmas to get what they want. If they need something or want something and we can do it, provide it, we're going to give it to them because they're great kids. They do very good in school. Anyway, that's besides the point. So basically, I made myself the oddball. And of course, I was keeping prayer times. It's either 9 and 3 or 10:30 and 2, and I had alarm.
Yeah.
Prayer time. So I would excuse myself from whatever I was doing to go to the bathroom and pray. So I was doing that. And I know that my coworker caught on because she would hear the alarm going.
Yeah, it happened to me too. All of a sudden, my alarm would go off at work, and it would be like, I had to go. My coworker heard my alarm go off, and then was like, "Oh, what is it? Time to take your pills?" You know, just like joking around, but like they would catch on that like there is a sequence, there's a pattern going on that every single day. Depending on the time of year, like it might be for 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., depending on like what month you're in. And then later again, 2:30 or 3 o'clock. But like you said it a little bit before, just so you had time to excuse yourself. But even office things, like we're going to decorate the office for, Halloween or for Christmas. Like it's something that everyone's supposed to do a little bit of, but I refused. Like I wouldn't do it. Like, nope, can't do it. And they're like, come on, you could help out. Like, we're doing this as a team. Like, you could help out. I'm like, I can't. It makes you such an oddball, and it makes you feel like it makes everyone else kind of look at you in a certain way too. And I'm sure that the same thing with your kids. Like, think about like, there's, the Christmas, recitals and all the different like things that you have to do for the holidays, and like how strange it is for them to be inside of a classroom like that.
I even emailed my son's music teacher because he's in choir, and they, as part of his grade, they have to perform in the town center for the tree lighting Christmas. And I emailed the teacher and I said, can we please excuse him? Can you please give him something else to make up for the grade? Because we are, we don't celebrate. And I would really hate to make him or myself feel uncomfortable. So of course the teacher's understanding. Oh, no worries. Jaken's I said his name. He's a great kid. Don't worry about it. He's covered. So, and that's another thing. For every single feast day, they were missing a lot of school. A lot of school. And letter or no letter, schools, 5 absences, and you get a letter. Your kid has been out for 5 or more absences. You have to make sure. And I used to have to call, look, please, I'm so sorry. They're doing really good in school. They have their grades up. Is this really going to affect? And they would be like, no, it's just more of a basically they have to do it. So it's like a flag that they get. The kids absent five times, they have to send out the letter per the state. Yeah. I did snap one time when he was in middle school, because I was really upset. I'm like, why are you sending me this letter? I was like, I spoke to the counselor. I'm like, why are you sending? Oh, well, he's been absent 5 times. And I said, yeah, but it's because of our religion. I said, you don't do this to Jewish people. Because, the Jews, they take they have a lot of Jewish. And as a matter of fact, here we're at the town I live in, we are off a lot of Jewish holidays. And I think the second year I was there, it was crazy because the Jewish Passover, all of the Jewish feasts fell on the same days as our feast. So my kids, I didn't have to worry about them being absent because the schools were closed. But I'm telling you, it's so much. It's so much. But yeah, they were missing school. They were keeping 5 a.m.s every day. They would wake up, put on their full suits, because I bought them suits, very expensive suits, ties, shoes, because clothes for men is much more expensive than for me. I could find deals for the clothes that I got. For them, oh my gosh. So, but they would then come home, get ready for school, and go. So, but so yeah, it was a lot. Then so May came, and I started to I was up to depression. So I started to get really, really depressed. I didn't want to do anything. And with the whole work thing, I started to feel a lot of it at work. And I used to excuse myself, and I used to cry in the bathroom and pray, please let these feelings go away. I don't want to feel like this. And people at work started to notice that something was going on, and then at home, I wouldn't cook, I wouldn't clean. I'm getting very personal here, but I wouldn't shower. I wouldn't brush my teeth. All I wanted to do was lay in bed all day, every day. And for most days I did. The only time that I would get up and I literally had to push myself was because I had to go to Sabbath or a third day evening because, and this is where it gets tough. The guilt that I felt, was horrible. That if I didn't go to church, that my boys would go to hell and my mom would go to hell. And so I really forced myself to go every time. I did step down from kitchen committee. I stepped down from kids room because there's a lot to kids room. I don't know if you ever want to do a second interview to hit specific points. Kids room was also, I didn't witness what Corey witnessed, which I think is terrible, but I did witness a sister hit her own kid, and I'm not big with the whole hitting your kid, maybe a little, what we say in Spanish, cocotazo, but nothing, she really beat him. Anyway, so that guilt was just the worst, and I didn't want my kids to go to hell. I didn't want my mom to go to hell, and I felt that if I didn't do my part, because I was the one who drove, driving was a challenge. I did not want to drive, but I drove myself and my children and my mom every Tuesday evening and every Saturday, because that's how you make it to heaven. Then the anxiety came, and guys, I can't even explain that feeling. It was so bad. And it came to the point that I became suicidal, and I was waking up my husband every night telling him that I felt this way, and I was so scared, and I don't understand why it wasn't going away. My doctor tried to change my medicine. She thought maybe the medicine wasn't working anymore, and it was just bad. It was really bad. And something that I haven't even told my family is that it got to the point where, so a little backstory, I've been in Jersey all my life. I was raised in Newark, New Jersey, which is not the best of places. It's the biggest city, and I grew up where there's a lot of violence, drugs, all of that. I took my kids out of that a long time ago, but it came to the point where I wanted to drive there and find someone who could sell me drugs so I can escape the pain that I was feeling, because I couldn't understand why I felt so much pain. And I was doing everything right. Like I said, we were keeping 5 a.m.s. We were doing pray daily. I was keeping my page, which is 4 categories where you have to keep your faith. You have to read the Bible, read a sermon book, and whatever. There was 4 categories, and I would do it every day. If I wasn't listening to the Bible on my way to work, and I was listening to a chapter in the sermon book just to keep up with it, just so my little tree can grow, and every level you would, everything, some little cartoon would show up. And I was doing that faithfully. I was doing everything right. I was tithing, I was offering, I was doing everything, and I couldn't understand why father and mother would allow me to go through such pain. And I said, how big of a sin must I committed in heaven for me to feel this way? And they were not giving me any relief. So I took a leave of absence from work. I told my boss what was going on. She was so understanding, and she even recommended a place for me to try because, she had her personal stuff. She recommended a place, and she was so great. I started a program that's called an intensive outpatient program where you go and you go 2 to 3 times a week to talk about your problems, whatever. And my father, my physical father, let's keep that in mind. My physical father was missing hours of work to take me there and bring me back home every day.
Did
Every
you
day
tell?
I had to go.
Did you tell anybody? Because I'm sure that if you're going from being on all these committees, everything like that, the members, the team leaders, the group leaders, the committee leaders, the church leaders are probably looking at you a certain way. Did any of them know about your struggles, and what was their response?
Yeah, for the kitchen committee, I told Kwansanim, and I told her, I'm not sure if you're very aware there's this mental disorder called bipolar 2. I'm struggling with that and some depression and anxiety. And she just looked at me like, okay, sister, it's okay. You can take a break, whatever. But it looked like she was confused and at the same time a little upset because I noticed that she changed with me a little bit once I stepped down. She wasn't the same loving, always giving me hugs. How are you, sister? How are the boys? How's your mother? No, she stopped that. Like the group leader who was also Korean, a deaconess, she pulled me to the side one day. She was like, oh, sister, I've been worried about you. Please tell me what's going on. So I tell her, listen, I'm having a hard time with life right now. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go to work. I don't, and I feel so bad and I'm really trying and I'm praying really hard. And she's like, we all feel like that sometimes. It's normal to feel like you don't want to go to work, like you don't want to, but we always have to remember that we're blessed, that Father and Mother is here for us. And I kept telling myself in my head, like, you don't know. You don't know what I'm going through. But that was that. So I told the deaconess I got close to, she was more understanding because she had a family history of bipolar. So she kind of understood on a more human level, physical level, what I was going through. I told my branch, of course, and I told my team leader that I was going through that. I would still go on Saturdays, but I would come home sometimes in between, or I would go to my car to cry. It was just, it was a tough time. It was a really tough time. But yeah, my father was losing hours. My mom was losing sleep. My mom would stay with me until I fell asleep. She would come down periodically at night to check on me. My husband was losing sleep. A friend of mine who lives in Florida, I don't even consider her a friend. She's family. She's my sister. She's my real sister, my true sister. I remember for a time when I first started going and when I was heavily indoctrinated, I would say, man, I don't know how to explain this to her, like where she would understand that this is a big part of my life now. And, I don't want to accept her. I don't want to upset her and I don't want to lose her. And I confided again in my branch and I said to her, how am I supposed to bring this up to her and tell her that I've changed without losing her friendship? Oh, don't worry about it. Such and such person, I was speaking to them for years and they don't talk to me anymore. I was like, I guess she's right. I guess as long as I'm with Father and Mother and my kids are in the right place and my mom is in the right place, we're going to be okay. It's okay if we stop talking or I apologize to her for thinking that way because during that time, it was July. She took a week off of work and she drove here from Florida with her daughter so she could be with me. And she cried with me every night and she prayed with me. and she would stay with me as well until I would fall asleep.
Yeah, we often get to that point where when we're a member, the closest people to us, we're ready to just walk away as if they meant nothing. And they're also the ones, though, when you are in need and when you come out, they're still there waiting for you. And any member who's inside the group, they're not going to have that sort of love and commitment to you. It's only something you find with like your real family. And they always try to say your real family is just a shadow. Your real family is just, but you could see that the love inside of the World Mission Society is not really true love. You're a number, you're a laborer, but you're not a family
You're
member.
a dollar sign.
Mm-hmm.
You're exactly. So,
and that shows up when
that they stayed.
Well, yeah, that shows up when you see the way that you're treated, the warmth that you might feel from the leaders or the different members begins to shift based upon, your level of commitment, regardless of what reasons you have for spending less time at the church or participating in things like the kitchen committee, even though your reasons for having to step away from some of those things are very valid, legitimate ones. It doesn't matter because, like Anthony said, you're a number. You're a dollar sign too in different ways, and so it doesn't. Deep down, the doctrine, the indoctrination, causes these people just to lose just basic human empathy. They don't see that when they see somebody hurting and broken. They see somebody who is presenting they're just not falling in line. They're not going along with the agenda, and so they're trouble. They're just a problem, and they will quickly discard and move on and try to find others to replace. It's a very heartless culture.
It is.
So was that then that all that kind of built up and so how did that transition into you leaving? Because at this point, you're having these deep struggles with depression and anxiety. How did that translate into you saying, I'm going to leave the WMS?
So within all that, I was really still struggling, and I really didn't want to go to an inpatient setting. I didn't. I was so scared because you hear stories and you see movies and they make it seem like when you get admitted, it's not a good experience. So I was very, very scared, but it came to the point where it had to be done. I had to do it. I couldn't take it anymore. I was hurting my family and my kids. So I went I think on a Monday night. I told the deaconess I got close to, I told my team leader. I remember telling my team leader, crying. I was saying to her, why hasn't Father come yet to take me away from this pain? I really want him to come because I don't want to live like this anymore. But I was admitted Monday, and I went into the ER on Monday, and I was fully admitted into the psych ward that Tuesday. And again, I think this has to be towards the end feast in October, because there was prayer times in the morning, and I didn't make those because I was admitted. But lo and behold, of course, my kids, they were still, oh my God, we have to do this. My mom was already baptized. She was, studying and following. And so while I was hospitalized, my father, again, my physical father would wake up extremely early in the morning. My mom would wake up to take the boys for 5 a.m. prayers, for not only the 5 a.m.s, there were also the ones at night.
The 7:30 p.m. because it's the autumn, so it's
because you
7:30
it's the
p.m.
5, right? So it's the 5 a.m.s and the 7:30s, and my father was the one doing that, waiting there till it was done, because usually those are only about a half hour. It's not the full 45 minutes to an hour service that you get. It's only like a half hour. So my father would sit parked in front of the church, and he would wait until they were done, and he would take them home. So while I was there, that was going on. I tried to keep up with prayer times while I was there, but I couldn't. I was already all messed up. I couldn't focus. I couldn't stay still. I was pacing back and forth. I really couldn't focus on anything. I remember my husband trying to watch a movie with me, and I couldn't focus on what was going on. It's just, anxiety is so real and it's so deep. I don't wish that on anybody. So yeah, but then I spend the 8 days there. I come out, and it was a Tuesday. And the first thing I get asked by my mom and my kids, because they're still there. They're like, "Oh, you're coming to Tuesday service?" I said, "No." I said, "I just got back. I kind of want to be home. I want to be with my husband and whatnot, and my cats, because I love my cats." Um, and so I didn't. I went that Saturday, and it was okay. I was singing a little and whatnot, but just didn't feel the same. It started to feel different, and I started to pick up on more cues and different things from the sermons. I remember clearly, and I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. I remember the pastor clearly saying, "If you do not preach, you will go to hell." And at that point, I told myself, I guess I'm going to hell, because I'm not going to go preaching anymore. I don't want to go preaching. I was doing everything. When I was going through that, I was told by my team leader, what's missing in your life? You need to go preaching. Odalys went preaching reluctantly, because I wasn't feeling it. Nothing. Odalys was doing everything. I was writing letters to mother every single day, sending them, telling her, "I feel so bad. Forgive me, father and mother, for whatever I did. Please take this pain away." I remember my team leader telling me before I got admitted, "Oh, our group leader is going to Korea to see mother. Write her a handwritten letter and attach a picture so she can give it to her." I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is an amazing blessing. Finally, mother is going to really read and see what I'm going through." I wrote a letter. I put a picture, the baptism picture of my mom with the three of us. The deaconess comes back, I think, after a week or two. You think she would say something. "Oh, sister, I hand delivered the letter, and mother, make it up, for crying out loud. Make it up. Lie if you have to. You're already lying." Crickets. She didn't approach me, didn't pull me to the side, nothing. I was like, "Ma'am, I don't know what happened." But then I was admitted. By then, whatever. I come back, and I'm trying. The same team leader pulls me to the side. "Oh my God, sister, isn't it amazing how you wrote to mother and now you're so much better?" I was like, in my head, I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And I told her, yeah, I know. In my head, I'm like, "No, I'm better because I decided to leave. I sacrificed 8 days without my children. 8 days. Not because I wrote a letter to mother." But that's what I was thinking in my head. So, that was that. the craziest part to me, and I have to thank this sister, even though I don't think she actually knows that it's what she said to me that prompted me to take the next step. It was after a morning service, and I decided I was going to stay because I was still going home back and forth. I was like, let me stay, let me try. So I stayed. We're having our little cookies and coffee or whatever. And the sister is a sister who's a lost sheep, what you call a lost sheep. Mm-hmm. So she's in and out, in and out, in and out, right? Now she's really getting into it, and she's really, she's doing her studies. She got her sermon book. She's ready to start doing sermons. And out of nowhere, she goes, "Sister, have you seen the things they say about father and mother on the internet?" And I looked at her. I was like, no, I don't pay attention to any of that stuff. I just felt that was very odd of all sisters for her to say that. So I was like, no, I don't pay attention to that stuff. But it kept, it stayed in my head. And I was like, man, I got to find out. So since my family was still into it, I didn't watch anything related to this home. Mm-hmm. I would go to work, and at work I would watch. So the first story, of course, that comes up on Jordan's page is Michelle Cologne. So I watched it. I think it was 2.5 hours or 3 put together between the two parts. Yeah. And I'm like, man, like, that's messed up. Why would they sue her? I don't get that. Like, come on. If you're God, why do you need to sue? God is love. I didn't get it. I was like, that's so wrong. I was like, man. But for the sake of my children and my mother's salvation, I chose to let it go. I said, you know what? It's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but I have to let it go for them. Mm-hmm. By this time, also, let me point out, my oldest son, my 17-year-old, he was in it. And he wanted to do more. He was doing sermon practicing. He started to preach. He wanted to go every Friday. He wanted to go more often during the week to go preaching or for whatever reason. Basically, he was really indoctrinated. And mm-hmm. I started to feel weird about that. And, so I said, but you know what, for his sake, for the sake of my other son and for my mom, I'm going to try to do this. I have to try a little harder. So we kept going. And I think the week later, I'm at work and I'm on YouTube. I'm going to watch something. And of course, now that I'm watching Jordan's stuff, it's suggested. Corey's face comes up. And I'm like, I know this girl. I know this face. Because I remember back in May, mm-hmm. she had transferred from New Windsor to Belleville. And, we do the whole, we love you when a member transfers or new member. So she got up and her face, I remember Corey's face. She wasn't happy. She did it, she did the whole thing. And then I remember I don't remember what group they had put her in, but I remember seeing her. And then sure enough, I'm like, you know what? I have to watch this. When she starts mentioning the same pastors I know, the same facilities I know, John Casas, Paul Cha, Daniel Lee. When she starts mentioning all these people and saying that she was in New Windsor and that she ended in Belleville, I was like, I knew it. I knew that was her. And as she got further and further into her story, it just broke me. For a person to last that long, 13 years in that place, and all of you 10 and a half, 17, I think it was Emma or one of the girls that's in the group. I was broken. I was broken. So I come home and I tell my husband, I said, no, I need to tell you something. I've been watching some videos on this church and I really think it's a cult. And he was like, what? And I'm like, I don't know if you want to watch it with me, but I'm not going back. And we need to talk to the kids and my mom because I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I'm not going to do the slow thing where people, go one or two services and don't go the next and this and like they start to slowly leave.
Yeah.
I was not going back. No. So I come home from work one night and we sit down and it's just tears and crying. And at that time, I was very, very afraid that if I spoke out, they were going to sue me. And I didn't want to get sued. It's not so much that I'm worried that they're going to win because I'm sure they're not going to win, but lawyers are not cheap. And who knows how long I would have to be, fighting them. Michelle has been fighting them for how many years? A decade now, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have that kind of money. I'm not saying we're poor, but we're not rich. So I was very scared. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want them to sue me, but I don't want us to be there anymore. And it was just a very emotional night. My son came down and we told him, he's like, but I have to keep going back, Mom. How am I going to keep all the feast? How am I going to follow God? And I was like, no, that broke me. I was like, no, they're going to take my son away from me. I can't do this. And I think he realized the pain I was in. And he was like, Mom, I'm so sorry. I can't believe they're doing this to you. And he was like, let's sit down and watch the video. And I said, yeah, we're going to go directly to Corey's video. And we did. And my father, my mother, my two boys and myself, my husband didn't want to watch because I basically gave him the details. And he's like, I don't want to hear what that poor girl went through. And we sat there for both parts of the interview. And that's when it kind of cemented the truth. And that was it. I'm very, very thankful to God because I do still believe in God. I still do believe in Christ that, I'm very thankful that my boy took it so well. I really thought that he was going to fight me on it. I thought that we were going to end up in like massive amounts of therapy. But he's taken it pretty well. And one thing I have to say that came out of all of this is that we did, like you said, Anthony, we did get closer. We're so much closer now. My family, we're more communicative. We're really there supporting each other. My boys are opening up to me more, especially my younger one who used to struggle. We used to have a really big struggle with how we communicated. And my parents, I can't explain the amount of love that I feel for them. For my sister, my real sister from Florida, when she watches it, she's going to know I'm talking about her. Yeah. So, and it's not to say that the people, the members are bad because they're not. It's not the members. It's leadership. It's, I don't know how to explain it. I guess Daniel Lee, he's a horrible man. I remember after I saw Corey's, after I saw Michelle's, video, we had a service, a Tuesday night service, and sometimes we have United Preaching on Tuesday nights. So it's all of the East Coast. And of course, he's the one that gives the sermon. And I remember him clearly saying, oh, mother wanted to go home this year, but of course, we're all slow to learn. So she's giving you guys another chance. I was like, oh God. I couldn't even look at him anymore. I was disgusted with him. And after Corey's story, I was just like, wow, this man is just evil. He's just, he's not a good person. He's not a good, tiny little man. Because he's, he's short, even though he walks around like he's, anyways. But yeah, so I mean, I have to be grateful. I want to try and move on. I'm still dealing with a lot of it. It's still very fresh. I still have triggers. I remember that my coworker has a Bible word search. And, I was doing some of them. And one day, one of the word searches is the John verse, the word became God, the word became flesh and that and whatnot. it just triggered me and I started crying. And I was like, oh my gosh. I told the group the other day, like, man, they really messed us up, because I'm at work and it's a small parking lot. And, you know, you won't see people preaching there, right? So I'm walking out and I see a man in a full suit, like the brothers, with a tie, and I froze. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I started walking really fast to my car. I felt like, is that a brother? Is he gonna come up to me? Like, the mind, I don't want to say the word, but the way they mess with your mind, it's just. And then even yesterday, I'm getting a piercing and it's cash only. So he gives me dollars and he gives me 2 nice ones. And I'm thinking, oh man, these are nice dollars. Like, I used to make sure that when I was giving my dollars, my $5, whatever I was giving, it had to be nice, crispy, new. It couldn't be those ones that are ripped, the ones that have writing on it, the ones that are really, really dirty. So I'm like, even messed up me carrying cash, because I feel like I need to save that one and I need to hold it for my offering. It's one thing I don't miss is bank every 2 weeks. I hate going to the bank.
It's gonna fade. That's definitely gonna fade.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot. And you know, I wanted to finally speak out because, one, I want to try and move on. I want to move forward. 2, I want people to know, who have the same issues as me, or any anxiety or depression or anything. It's not Satan. You know, it's a legitimate disease, illness. There's help out there, plenty of help, whether you want to go the medication route or whether you want to go the natural route. Just know it's not you. It's not Satan, you know, and this place is not the place where you are really going to find God. It's not, because God is not there. And I feel bad for the members that are still there, that are still blinded. You know, I remember one day, towards the end of my time there, I saw an older member, very cute old man, and he always made it a point to say, God bless you, to see how I was doing, you know, to my kids. And, you know, I always wanted to give him a huge hug. But as you know, you can't really interact. If you're a sister, you have to interact with sisters. And if you're a brother, you interact with brothers. It's a rare thing where you see sisters and brothers interacting, especially physically. So I felt so bad. And I teared up because I saw him and he was smiling. And I was like, man, he doesn't know that this is all fake. It's BS. It's not real. And I felt so bad. You know, so many members are so good. They're such beautiful souls, beautiful people. And it's really heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It really is. And, you know, the Korean deaconess who was my group leader, calls me a couple weeks ago. Damage control, complete damage control. I know that she was fishing for, you know, I guess if I'm going to go speak or whatever. So first she calls and she's like, oh, sister, I was trying to give you time. You know, I was told by such and such person that you no longer are coming to Zion. I just wanted to know why. And when I proceed to tell her why, she says nothing. And then her story changes. Oh, well, sister, you know what? I just called to make sure that you were okay, that you were taking your medications. And, you know, I hope that that within the little time that you were here, because 3 years is a little bit of time. It is compared to all the years that you guys have been in there.
But still,
that you learned something, that you took something with you from father and mother. I said, no, I learned absolutely nothing. And, you know, I said, I'm grateful for the people I met, for the members. And I pray every single night that they open their eyes. Oh, I said, yeah, that's what I pray for. Because I didn't learn anything good there. But yeah, there's a whole lot more. But it's a lot. And the basic point that I wanted to make is that if you're a current member and you're trying to leave, don't be afraid. You know, if you're thinking of joining, please do not join. And, that's it. I just, don't be afraid to think for yourself. Don't be afraid to follow that instinct, because that's another thing. They make it a point. I remember the sermons, don't think with the mind of the man. Make sure you obey. Obedience is key. Obey, obey, obey. Don't question. You shouldn't be thinking with your physical minds or with the mentality of men. You should be thinking with the mentality of God. And what does God say? God says obey. So no, they stripped the person that I was. And granted, I wasn't the best of people. So that's one thing I've learned to, express myself better without getting angry and things like that. But they stripped that from me, the person I was. And people that can attest to it, which I wouldn't want them to if they don't want to, is my job. I personally went to every single person that I know I was weird with or made feel awkward, and I apologized. And I told them, I was just going through a very rough time. A lot was going on. I'm so sorry if I ever made you feel a certain way or ever made you feel like, and now everyone's like, wow, what a change. Because I'm me. I am me. And I like that about me. And I mean, that's it. I'm so thankful that I have that job, because again, my boss was so understanding. I even went to her and I said, I was so sorry. I wasn't giving the best of me. I've always been very prideful of my jobs. I always take pride. I always, so I went in there like, I don't care. And then things got worse. And it was a mess. So I apologize to everyone. And it's so much better now. So much better. I have to say that even though I still have triggers and I have moments where I cry nonstop, because I do feel guilty. I feel very, very guilty for introducing my boys and my mom to that place. Even though I feel that guilt, I'm happy that we're not there anymore. I really am. And I'm happy that it only took years and not 15, 20. And, like all of you guys, I feel so much for you, because my goodness, you guys gave decades of your life, your youth, and it's just.
Yeah. So what I wanted to bring up too, is you had mentioned that you spent just eight days. You went to the hospital. Yeah. And during that time, when you came back, everything kind of seemed a little bit different. One of the people that the church really speaks against is a cult expert, Steve Hassan, who was in the Unification Church, the Moonies. And he had a similar situation where he was in a car accident, and the time away from the group, because when you're there, they tell you what to think. They tell you like how to view everything. They control it, and they need that. That's why, like, I feel like the prayer times every single day, it brings you right back to that mindset of being in the church. Like these constant reminders, these constant things, they have to keep programming you over and over and over and over for them to keep their control over you. But those 8 days that you were away allowed your brain to start to notice the problems. So when you went back, you were able to see things clearly. And I'm hoping that I know you mentioned your son had left and he was getting very enthusiastic about going, and I don't know if he's there for Doctrine, if he was there for, the unity, if, whatever unity, because I know he didn't really experience all that with the members his age, but sometimes the older members might take a younger person under their wing. So I'm not sure if he gets to hang out with these like older people, and, whatever the case might be, whatever drew him in, I'm, if he still needs some help, there's definitely help out there for him as well. Cause I know that, that might be something like, cause some people, there are some things that they teach, like you said, when you were doing that, John chapter 1, the word flesh, that was a trigger for you. I'm sure that everyone leaves unscathed, nobody leaves unscathed from this place, and everybody has some sort of thing that they carry with them. So, I know that finding unity outside, finding a community of people who've gone through it, and then also being able to understand what you went through and to unwrap those triggers inside of the verses that they built up for you is really important. So as you're leaving and as you're finding yourself again, you're figuring out the ways that because you said the same thing. There are these certain things that, like, your crisp bills are going to be a trigger. Like, these things are going to just like, I used to, if someone gave me a gift card, like, oh, here's the $50 Amazon gift card. The first thing I do is calculate how much I have to tithe. Like, and I'm like, oh, never mind. Oh my gosh, like that'll naturally occur. But those things fade over time. But I just want to say that you're going to be on this journey of healing, and there's people who've gone through it too, and you're not alone. That's really number one. You and your family, you're not alone in this journey, and I'm happy that at least through it, like you said, you found a deeper connection with your family.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, one last thing. Oh. I'm sorry. The one last thing, Jordan, I do have to thank you. I really, really have to thank you. Like, I thanked you the day of the phone call. I remember I told you that I saw your video on New Song, and that when I went to my branch, she was like, oh, he's just a slanderer, blah, blah, blah. So every once in a while you would pop up. I'm like, oh no, this guy again. Now I'm like, yes, this guy again. He has a new interview out, or he has a new breakdown with Edgar, or the Staff of Moses. That really did help me too. Like, when you guys were breaking that down, and every time you and Edgar sit down, and it definitely helps me understand it more, and not be so confused by what they were teaching us and teaching me. So thank you, Anthony, too. Everybody. I'm really, it's amazing and crazy how many of us are really out there that have been through it. So
it's interesting to think about the few people that we get to hear, like, from your stories that are impacted by the videos, and all the former members. Even this interview we're doing right now, we will hear, even if it's 30, 40, 50 people who might, between the emails we get, the comments we get, and so on, the people that are impacted. But it's fun to think about, the amount of views some of the videos get, knowing that the vast majority of people who are being impacted will never even know about. And it's and so I'm that's why I continue to be thankful for you guys being willing to do this, for Anthony being willing to take his time out to help me do these, and just add that another element of 10 years of experience in the church in these interviews, and of course Kelsey and Edgar and Michelle, all she's doing. But I wanted to say just that I think, I guess in the way of an encouragement, just say that the guilt, I think that will alleviate with time, but to emphasize that wasn't you, that wasn't truly you who made the decisions that you made there. That wasn't you. And so I hope that you can find a way to take that guilt that is, I think, misplaced, in as much as you're allowing that to rest on you, and put that back on them, because the decisions you made and how that caused harm to yourself and family, whatever harm might have come about, that is cult strategy in action. That is high demand, high control groups like WMSCOG. That's just what they do. That's how they get their grips into people and get them to make the decisions they want them to make. And so I just think to separate yourself from those decisions, I think, is not you not taking ownership, but it's you having a clear picture of what actually happened to you. And so I think as you both said, with time, all that will get easier. This will get easier. I think even the anger, the resentment, and all these things will alleviate. This is fairly fresh. It sounds like, it's just been a matter of months since you came out. So I think the earliest part, and I'm sure as Anthony would say as well, is going to be the most difficult, this early part of it, and really just unsticking completely from all the different things that they had their their grip into you in so many ways, and slowly over time those things are going to just more and more be removed. And so I guess the last question that I would ask would just be along the lines of this so common question that we get that you mentioned earlier, that is, where else would I go? So I think there's so many people that will likely even watch this video who are going to be in different levels of their attachment to the WMS, whether they're on the way out or whether they're still kind of in the middle of it and maybe for whatever reason decided to turn this video on. But people who have that question of like, okay, well, I see the red flags, I see the issues, I've been treated badly in this way and that way, but what else is there? Where else could I go? And so I guess this question is for anybody here. I just wonder if there's anything that either of you might want to share. If you had somebody face to face asking that question, what are some things you might say to them to hopefully point them in a right direction?
Anthony?
Oh, well, one thing I would point out is when we were talking about verses before, how we learned them in a particular way. There were certain things that I would always go to or try to prove my point with, which was a verse out of context. And all those triggers first, I had to relearn, like go in and read the context, read what the verse is actually saying, and then understand it for what it was meant to do, because there's a lot of metaphoric language, there's a lot of poetic language, and a lot of things that the church brought out of context. So I would say, like, what's important for you? Like, what are you looking for when you're looking for a place to go? And when you, like, I would originally as a member think, oh, well, I need the Passover, I need the Sabbath, I need the Feast of God, I need this, I need that. But then when you actually read through the Bible and unlearn what they taught you, those requirements that they put on you aren't actually requirements at all. And it opens you up to look for what actually you're looking for in a church, and your way to find a connection with God. And I think everybody's on a particular journey, and you don't need to find a place as soon as you walk out the door. The first thing you need to do is heal that the harm that was done to you. And, just because your church is wrong, but you don't know of the right church to go to, doesn't mean you should stay and continue to be manipulated and abused. It's like, you could see that this place is clearly not godly. This place is clearly wrong. This place is not the place to be. Separate yourself, all those hours and hours and hours and labor that you're giving to this place, dedicate that to actually understanding the scripture or understanding God. You're not going to find the right church when you're giving all your hours and time to the wrong church. So
yeah, it's kind of like I think of it as, when this question is asked, where else would I go? First off, as you're kind of alluding to, Anthony, there's so many assumptions that are behind that question. People are still, when they are asking that question and struggling with that question, they're still assuming the truth of the WMS to even be motivated to ask that question. In other words, you're still thinking what I've been taught in the WMSCOG, that there's only one true church, that Passover is the core of the gospel and the only way of salvation, that Sabbath has to be kept on Saturday, and every other church in the world is evil and led by Satan. You're still, the reason you're asking that question is because you're still assuming that all of that is true. And so the first thing would just be to dive into some of those things and understand that those things are not true. Your assumptions are based on a flawed foundation. And so the question is really doesn't even need to be asked in the first place when you understand that the WMS has lied to you about so many things that are causing you to ask that question. And the second thing would just be, if you're recognizing the red flags, if you're noticing issues, whether that's doctrinal issues, maybe you've come across the fact that Ahnsahnghong had 3 chapters removed. The WMS removed 3 chapters from the Green Book. Maybe you're realizing that he wrote a whole book refuting the doctrine of Mother God, the women's veils, and whatever that super long title of that book is, where he took the exact scriptures that the WMS uses to prove the existence of Mother God. He took those and said, look, this is not, Galatians 4 is not about Mother God. So maybe you're coming across things like that. Maybe you've heard about Michelle Cologne being sued by the WMS first, simply for sharing online about what her experiences were. Whatever it is that you're encountering and you're saying, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't seem like something that would be a part of God's true church. Maybe you're being hurt by members. So to recognize those red flags, and then, it's kind of like if you're recognizing that you've been drinking all day out of this bottle, and then you look down at it and you recognize, oh, wait a minute, this has a gasoline label on it. And it says toxic, do not drink. This is not healthy for you. And you're like, okay, well, I don't see anything else around me to drink. Like I don't see any bottles of water around me. So I'll just keep drinking this until somebody tells me what's the right place to go, until somebody comes along and offers me a bottle of water. I'm just going to keep drinking that gasoline. Well, no, toss it, chuck it, stop drinking the gasoline. And then answer the question, and then dive into figuring out, where do I go now? What's next? What's the next step for me? Is the Passover something I need to be keeping, and all these things? But just that idea that you need to continue subjecting yourself to abuse and just remaining in this organization where you're seeing there's so many problems with it that this can't possibly be the truth. Don't keep drinking that gasoline until you find like the right place to go. Just get out of there. And then you're going to be so much more able to make a informed decision from a healthy place when you're not, still drinking poison as you're trying to make decisions about your life. And so I would just say, just get out of there. And then, if you want to try to answer that question of where to go next, do that once you've stopped drinking the poison. And the WMSCOG is poison. It is poison. And that's, I think, attested to by every former member who comes on this channel to share.
Yeah. They're toxic. Very toxic. And yeah, I think for any person who's thinking of joining, they definitely need to do their research. Do your research. Don't listen to what they say that the internet is saying or whatever they're going to tell you. Do your research. For those members who are, thinking of leaving, but like you said, they, where am I going to go? You shouldn't worry about that. Like you said, if you're feeling that way, there's a reason why you're feeling that way. Follow that. Follow your instinct. Follow your gut, because that's why God gave us freedom of choice. So follow that and see. And then, like you said, if you feel like you want to seek God by going to a different church or whatever the case is, give yourself time to heal. Like, and for me personally, I have to give myself time to heal. The verses are still a trigger. I still have a lot of triggers, and I'm very thankful to God. I believe in Jesus Christ, but right now I'm not ready to go to another church. Honestly, I don't want to go back to a church. I'm not ready to fully delve into the Bible again. I listen to your videos with Edgar and things like that to get a better understanding. And one thing I do have to point out, that how you were saying there's a lot of indiscrepancies, and I can't find the exact page, but I know that in one of his book, Ahnsahnghong says that it doesn't matter if you are doing good and this and that. The only thing that matters is having faith in Jesus Christ. And Edgar is one that is always saying that. Like, if you sit there and actually read all of the entire concept of the book, Apostle Paul, what is he saying? Faith in Jesus Christ is what's going to save you. So it's not to say that you should go murder people and do bad things. It's just saying that, you don't have to keep Passover. You don't have to keep Sabbath. You don't have to keep all these feasts. You don't have to do all of that, because at the end of the day, Jesus Christ gave us a gift. Gifts are free. Like Jordan said in one of his videos, I'm not going to go to my son and say, I'm giving you a gift, but you need to do this for me and you need to do that for me. No. Jesus Christ gave his life for us. He gave us the gift of salvation. And what is it we have to do? We have to have faith in Jesus Christ. They even twist up the robber that was to his right or left, the one that believed in him. They try to put a twist to that. But at the end of the day, that robber made it to heaven because he believed in Jesus Christ. He had faith that he was the Messiah. So, I mean, as far as going where else you're going to go, I think any current member needs to give themselves time. Think about it, watch, do your own research as far as, the Bibles, watch some of Jordan's videos, because that has helped me a lot. Like, it really has helped me break it down and find more understanding. So, and I have to also say, I love that you guys do it so humbly. Jordan, you do everything with such a kindness and humbleness. Even when you got on with that current member, the gym guy, you were very calm. You kept it, you didn't attack. Kelsey was great. That shows you that that's true, that you're not Satan, because you are doing it out of the kindness of your heart. You stay humble. You don't attack. You don't accuse. You don't judge. That is all of the opposite of what the World Mission Society Church of God does. They attack, they accuse, they judge. As far as going to another church, I think that's a personal preference. If you feel you're ready, go ahead. But, take your time and make sure you heal and make sure that you do your research first. And that's it. I mean, at the end of the day, God gave us free will for a reason, free choice. So I don't think just one church is right. So I'm starting to have different views on all of that as well. So, last thing I wanted to bring up, Anthony, was it? Yeah, it was you with Esperanza. Remember, I don't know if it was Anthony who said it or Jordan. He was like, I'm surprised you didn't lose all your hair. Well, guess what? I did. So I had to chop it off because I lost all of my hair. So it was, that was like, when he said, I was like, oh my gosh, he's talking about me right now. So, yeah. But yeah, that's, I just hope that people really, really start to open their eyes, because there are good people there. There really are. So.
And then for me, for my last question is, now that you have this, your Tuesdays, your Saturdays, your Friday nights, you don't have to worry about the all the financial burdens and all the stress. What are you looking forward to? Like, what's your goal? Do you have anything set up right now that you're looking forward to enjoying now that you've had 3 years kind of taken away?
I'm looking forward to enjoying an actual vacation with my family, because I was afraid to take vacations because I felt I would have to find a Zion wherever we went, and that we would have to go prepared with the proper clothes, with all our veils and new songbooks and everything. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to hopefully my business growing just a little bit. I don't really want it to get too big because I'm not ready for that. And I like my job. I really do like, the people and everything. And I'm just looking forward to really watching my kids grow up, because that was another thing. They would come home some nights from Sabbath and would say, this world doesn't matter. This physical life doesn't matter. So, and my husband used to get really upset. He used to be like, you're coming out of church. Why are you saying things like that? you should be happy and grateful to God for the life so that was something I also noticed. I didn't like that they would say that, like, this, nothing in this physical world matters. We need to focus on, building our blessings for Zion and the spiritual world. So I'm looking forward to watching them grow up, become the great, amazing young men that I know they are. And I'm looking forward to growing old with my husband, and, hopefully vacationing every now and then, or just, laying down with all our cats, and that's it. Yeah. Cause we're going to go for a fourth. We have 3 and I'm getting one more. I need one more. So yeah, but I mean, that's about it. And, taking care of my parents, I love them so much. And I just want us to be at peace and really become and stay. I don't want to say become, because we're a family, but really stay the close-knit family that we have become since this experience. That's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're out, that the WMS didn't do what so unfortunately does happen for so many families, where they still after years and years continue with division and separation, and mothers not having any relationship with their daughters, and fathers with their sons, and husbands and wives, families being torn apart. And it's just, I'm thankful that some of you escape some of those worse effects, and that you get to enjoy your family now, enjoy your time, enjoy your life, and not be ruled completely by the dictates of WMS propaganda.
And Daniel Lee, oh, that man, ugh, I can't. It's terrible. But yeah, I'm happy too. And I wanted to say, I was gonna order one of the shirts, because I was gonna wear it for the interview, because I said, oh, March, I have some time to get it, but I didn't have enough time. So I don't know if you guys can see it. It's the villains. Can you see it? Or is it? So yeah, because I'm going to be a villain now to the WMSCOG.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's funny that you're wearing that. Yeah, the members watching they're gonna point out your shirt, and they're gonna say, "See, look at that! Look at, she's just embracing who she is." Yeah,
she's embracing Satan. Yeah, so.
right. No,
but I'm definitely gonna get you one of those shirts, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. Anthony, show off your shirt a little bit. This is, right, I don't know that I've, So these are shirts that are available at, if you go to, actually, I think there's a link. I don't think it's greatlightstudios.com at this point. I think I changed the link, but there's a link. If not in most videos, I'll put a link in the video description here, where we've made some different shirts that you can buy and kind of support the cause. So I'll put a link in the video description if you want to get one of those rad shirts and rock it like Anthony. Obviously, it'll be hard to look as good as Anthony does in it, but
that's funny,
so. Well, Odalys, thank you so much again for sharing. I know this will help a lot of people just by your willingness to be vulnerable and to open up and to just publicly share what you experienced and how you came out. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you guys again, really. I look forward to your videos. And, I remember I was cooking one day and I'm like, man, I haven't seen anything from Jordan lately, and I click and it suggests you and you're with Esperanza and Anthony. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, this is what I totally needed right now. So yeah, it's great. So thank you guys. I really, really hope you guys continue to do what you do and keep helping us. And yeah, thanks a lot.